Temp check. What kind of summer are we having this year? A family road trip summer? A beach bum summer? Or a wake me up when the sun sets summer? With Instacart, choose your own adventure and skip the shopping side quests. Where available, you can get ice cream delivered to your hotel, sunscreen to the pool, or cold brew to your bed. Well, door, in as fast as 30 minutes. Wherever you find yourself this summer, you can get the goods. Download Instacart for free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Excludes restaurants. Additional terms and fees apply.
It's easy to get lost in the latest true crime podcast or your favorite binge-worthy show. But what about your own story? That's the most important story of all, and therapy helps you write it. BetterHelp Therapy is 100% online and designed to be convenient and flexible enough to squeeze in between the next episode on your list. Get started today at betterhelp.com/pause for 10% off your first month.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And this episode is a little different. We have a couple special guests here, and we are going to go back through the last decade of horror.
Hell yeah. So on our podcast today, to deliberate over the best horror of the decade, we have Molly Henery, who is a past guest. She is a writer with her blog, The Blogging Banshee. And then we have Jessica Rose, writer for Nightmare on Film Street and Modern Horror, if I'm correct?
Yes.
And so they're both joining us today to talk about 10 years of horror and their favorites. We're so excited to have you guys.
Yes, welcome.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me again.
Of course. And so the way that we're doing this for listeners is instead of just having our favorite of the decade blanket, we're going to actually do our favorite from each year of a decade. So that way we don't forget the early 2010s, which I feel like I had forgotten about until putting this list together and like what had come out then. So it was a much harder list, I think, for us all to put together. But that just means we did a lot of research, and they're very good lists. And we will inevitably have forgotten some. I can only imagine what I have forgotten on my list. So I'm excited to talk to everyone about this.
I am too. And as we were going through this, like we were kind of talking offline, like none of us know what anyone else chose, but we were talking offline about how like we were using Wikipedia, had like a list of the movies released each year, and Rotten Tomatoes had one, and we're looking at them and like realizing that the dates that they had on there might not be actually the dates that they were released here in the States or in North America. So like it became like this kind of like a game of hunting to see when this movie actually was released.
And please don't come for us on Twitter or in our email about it. We did our best. This is the final list. Please.
We put a lot of thought into this.
Please don't come for us. I'll cry. But so before we jump into Best of the Decade, we just want to quickly talk about what we've been watching. watching, reading, playing, anything that we want to talk about. So Terry, what have you been watching, reading, playing, etc.?
Well, this episode is going to come out like at the end of the year. It's going to be the last episode of the year, and so it's Christmas time. It's around my brother's birthday, and one of the things that we always do for my brother's birthday is watch a bunch of Christmas horror movies.
I love
and
that.
So, and we always watch Krampus. It's become like a perennial favorite for us. But I also introduced him to Anna and the Apocalypse this last weekend, and I introduced him to Better Watch Out.
Two that I still really need to see.
Oh, they're so good.
So good.
And so I didn't know how my brother's name's Chris. I didn't know how he was going to like Anna and the Apocalypse, because I mean it's a musical, it's kind of like high schooly in the beginning. And I literally, before we started recording, got a text from him that says, "I've got that fucking Human Voice song stuck in my head." So there's just like a song where they're like singing about I need a human voice and that kind of thing, and like it's catchy. And so I think he actually enjoyed it, which was was good.
That's always so nice when you show. I feel like I always get so worried to show people movies, especially horror movies. I'm always like, this could either go really well or really poorly, and they're going to think I'm a crazy person. So it's always so nice when it pans out and the person really enjoys it.
Well, I always tell him I'm going to disown him if he hates it. So
perfect.
So he has to like it.
He does. It's a requirement. But yeah, so that's I mean, no new movies for me. Just
cool.
Just some Christmas glee. What about you, Mary Beth?
I have a couple things coming up between when we're recording this and when we are releasing the episode, but most recently I saw The Devil for my column on International Horror for Nightmare on Film Street, and it was a film that I was so excited to watch, and it is absolutely brutal. It's a Korean horror movie, or like serial killer thriller horror movie, and it is absolutely brutal, and it's amazing, and I encourage everyone to watch it. If you like Park Chan-wook, especially Old Boy, you will absolutely love this movie. And I'm like, my columns at this point have become excuses for me to watch movies that I have been meaning to watch, and I'm so glad I'm giving myself those excuses to watch them and then write about them. It's been really awesome this year. So,
had you seen that before?
No, I hadn't actually.
It's so good.
I know.
It's really fucked up.
It's fucked up. And that was, I think, one of the reasons I was avoiding it is like, I love fucked up movies, but I think it was one of those movies I always needed to, I wasn't like ready to watch. And I finally made myself watch it, and I'm so glad I did. Despite how harrowing it is. But still, I really enjoyed it.
Have you guys seen it?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so good. But yeah, it definitely is a brutal one.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
It's been so long since I've seen it.
It makes you like terrified of other people.
It does.
I don't know.
I mean,
Like
I'm
that
already
just,
like that. So.
Don't come near me.
Molly, what have you been watching or reading, whatever, that you've enjoyed recently?
I work from home, so I watch a lot of shit. Obviously just saw the new Black Christmas, watched the Joe Bob Briggs Red Christmas special on Shudder. I just got, non-horror related, I just got done watching through all of the Star Wars films leading up to the new one, which will be, I assume, out by the time this airs. So then I will have seen that one too.
I can't wait. I'm going to have my tickets already to see the new Star Wars
too.
movie. I'm so excited.
So excited.
And then actually just today I watched the latest Into the Dark episode, A Nasty Piece of Work.
Okay, how was that?
I think it's one of the better ones. I feel like it's been kind of hit or miss for those. Right. But I prefer this one to, what was the Christmas one last year? Puka?
Oh yeah, Puka.
I personally liked this one better than Puka.
Wasn't Puka one of the first ones too?
Yeah, it was
last
like
year.
the third.
Yeah, because Jess, you report. It sounds like, but you review them all for Nightmare on Film Street, right? I feel like you're like the correspondent for us for Into the Dark.
I am. I do report on them. I love them all. I'm totally biased, but no, I thought A Nasty Piece of Work was really well made. They are they're also special in their own ways. And I can't even say that they're like, they get better or anything like that, because like you said, they're all different. They all have different directors. Some of them came back for this season, but I think it's such an awesome thing that they have going on for Hulu.
Yeah.
And they're all Blumhouse produced, so they're just, they're going to be like top notch in a way.
Yeah, and what I think I really appreciate about them is that they're giving a lot of diverse voices a chance. Because like I think I kind of didn't watch. I don't think I've watched very many of them, but I do remember the ones I watched. I remember a lot of, like, I saw Culture Shock, and it just, I really dug that one. And there's one coming up the end of this month that I'm really looking forward to, because it's called Midnight Kiss, and it's queer as fuck.
Yeah, you're gonna love it. It is fantastic.
And it's being,
that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I have the screener for it, and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I'm really excited to see it. I think it's awesome that it has a gay director, Carter, who did I think he did the Ruins, didn't he? Carter Smith, I think is his name.
Yeah,
is?
he did do the Ruins.
Carter Smith. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like
and
that
then
one too.
it also, and I know I'm going to butcher his last name, so I'm not even going to try. But he wrote and directed The Rift, which is a really fantastic gay ghost story.
Oh yes,
Oh,
that
my
one's on
God.
Shudder right now, right?
It's on Shudder, yeah.
Yes. Oh, that one's so good.
It's like
called The Rift?
Erlinger Thordson, I think is his name. Yeah, The Rift.
That was a little
And,
bit of a
yeah.
sleeper. That one, that was good.
Yeah. Or just Rift, not The Rift, just Rift. But yeah, so I'm glad to hear that Nasty Piece of Work is really good. I've been meaning to watch that one.
Yeah, it's a good one that it's one of those films where it kind of messes with you a little bit, which I like when films mess with you and make you wonder what the hell is actually going on. And I think that one does a good job of that.
And so, Jessica, what have you been watching, enjoying recently?
So I had a really, really great day on Saturday. My soon-to-be husband had a work party on Friday night, and because there was a lot of in and outside, and Atlanta is going from, I think, like the low 50s to today's like the 70s, I got super sick. And
oh, great.
So Saturday I was able to stay in and watch as much as I can. So I got to see In Fabric and Daniel Isn't Real.
Oh my God. Wow. What a great double feature.
It was such a good day. I loved it.
Wow.
In Fabric, I knew I wanted to see it. You know when you get that feeling about a movie?
Yes.
And you're like, I'm going to like this. That it held up. And I was like, oh, it's so beautiful. It's so fucking beautiful.
It's beautiful and
interesting.
Weird and like daring and interesting.
So weird.
And you never really know what's going to happen, which I love. And it's just like the kind of, it's like you want more lore, but you're glad that they didn't give you all the lore. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I was my sister had asked me what it was about because I had showed her the trailer when it came out. And so when I told her that I had seen it, she was like, oh, come on. I wanted to see that. And I was like, well, sucks to suck. I had to watch it.
You know, I think my one problem with that movie, though, is that there's either I think they either needed to have another story or just focus on,
because it wasn't like symmetrical. Like there wasn't like 3 or 4.
Right. Well, and like you
Yeah.
spend like so long with I forget what her name is. It Sheila, the original, the first woman, and like I was really all about her story, and then it's like, now we're gonna introduce a new character.
She was
And-
so
Which
good,
I-
too. That actress. She was
She was.
amazing.
So interesting. And I thought that was kind of weird because it kind of took me by surprise that they introduced this like secondary storyline all of a
Right.
sudden. But then if you want to talk about symmetry and doubles, I mean, we can get into
Oh
that.
my
but-
God. Daniel Isn't Real.
Daniel Isn't Real was so great. And
Isn't it amazing?
I just was like, this is such a brilliant idea. I had seen Z earlier in the year, and I really liked that, like the idea of like the imaginary best friend.
Z
being
fucked me up.
It was so good.
What is
I was
this?
like,
Z is by the guy who did, I think his name is Brandon Christensen. He did Stillborn. Z's about an imaginary friend. It's another imaginary friend movie, but it's different than Daniel Isn't Real. But it's like the imaginary friend that comes back to her son, and it ends up this imaginary friend is like following her, and it's the creature design is absolutely like disgustingly off-putting. It's awful, but in a great way. But like it gave me nightmares, which is a very rare thing nowadays. But like it freaked me the fuck out. So I don't know if it has distribution yet. It was It was in a couple of festivals.
That's
year.
why I
think
yep.
it was from Fantastic Fest.
Yes, it was from Fantastic Fest, I think, but it hasn't gotten distribution yet, and I hope it will because it won like scariest movie at one of the festivals, and Stillborn also won scariest movie of the year it came out. So it's really freaky.
Is it Z like just the letter Z?
Yeah, just the letter Z.
And it's
Colin
like it's so
Minihan
hard to
co-wrote
find.
it.
Yeah, he did.
God, he is writing everything.
Yeah.
He's got his hands on a good bit. It was one of those, I see so many, and some are good. I always like to focus on the good whenever I'm reviewing a movie, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because I always say, like, they made a movie and I didn't. So
exactly.
I could never do this. I can't even handle, like, a 9-to-5 job. So, like, if you're making a movie, I can't even imagine what goes into that. But Z was one of those that I didn't even hear about it too much before I, like, watched the screener. And it took me by surprise. And I was like, that's what I want in a movie. Too. That's what I want. And I knew Daniel was going to be good because I had heard so much about it before. Yeah. But dang, that was like those two actors. I don't even remember their names because I wasn't writing about it, so I didn't look too much into it. But man, that was fantastic. What a fun idea.
Tim Robinson's son.
Really?
Yeah, Robbins, not Robinson.
Robbins,
Miles,
and then
Tim Robbins,
isn't Patrick Schwarzenegger?
imparts Patrick Schwarzenegger. Yeah,
that's why I like them so much.
Wow. I assumed he was like Arnold. That's a name that is not really duplicated.
Right.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of Schwarzeneggers running around. Well, we'll talk about Daniel Isn't Real later as like a teaser because it might be on someone's list.
Maybe. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. It's a teaser.
Oh, yeah.
We don't know if, we don't know who. It'll be a surprise.
You don't know. Maybe I'm joking. Maybe I'm like not. I don't know, guys.
It's a red herring.
Listening to find
I
out.
might have forgot to put it on my fucking list.
So now that we've talked about that, should we just like dive into our decade list?
Yes. Can you believe that it's the end of a decade?
No.
That's crazy.
I mean, if 10 years ago, I would have been 28, going into my 30s, and I still was in the closet.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so...
It's an important decade for you.
It's crazy.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah. What about you guys? How old were you guys when the decade started?
16.
Oh my god.
I was 20.
Y'all are so young.
My birthday's in January, so I would have just been turning 22.
Oh, I am baby.
You're the baby.
She baby.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
I was 16, and I was just starting to think about college. No, I think I just gotten into college.
What?
No, you would have been thinking about college. I had just started college. Or I was about to start
Hold
college.
on, because I graduated in 2011. So 2010 I would have gotten into college, though.
Oh, then I was in college. Oh my god.
I think this is correct, because... No,
I don't
wrong.
want to hear it, because 2010 I would have been like 6 years out of college, okay?
I don't know. I was in high school, so whatever. Regardless of like where I was in high school, I was in high school, and I was a giant dork. So
Terry, you were like where I'm at now, where I'm like, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back. Can I go back? This sucks. Why did I choose this?
Right. How did I get here?
Yeah. 2010.
God.
And 2010, is anybody else's list like, I don't know if anybody like micromanaged their list like I did, but I told you guys I did like all the movies that I was like, okay, these are all the good ones that came out, and they just got like longer and longer.
Yeah.
That is exactly what happened to me. I even
Okay.
made a note on us. I'll tell you when we get to the year where I said this is when it got hard for me to pick a favorite.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it got to the point where I was like, I don't know how to do this anymore. Someone just tell me what to pick, because it just horror has gotten so good. I mean, it's always been good, but just like the number of choices I feel like this decade have just like gotten exponentially better with each year.
Yeah.
And it's
that's
wild.
That's kind of a good segue. What do you guys think of this last decade in horror?
It's been
It's
amazing.
I don't know where we were all talking about it, but I was like, I know I'm gonna get a whole lot of shit for this. It was probably in a private message somewhere because
It
they
was.
don't put it
I
out
think it was
there.
on Twitter.
It was in our little group chat.
Yes, and I was like, this. Okay, that's where it was. Okay, it was my safe space. I was like, this is the best decade of horror, the one that we're in right now. This is it. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna speak for the future because it only does get better, but like, look at how much we have. We have, and like, we have technology, and we have practical effects mixing with CGI. I'm not like a super huge CGI fan. I don't want all of it, but they didn't even have any of that back then, and they still made these great movies. But we have that, and we're making even more of these great movies. And like you said, Terry, like you were in the closet back in 2010, and now it's like there's so much more. There's a whole community, and we have social media.
Yeah.
I can't imagine us getting any more connected than we are now. I don't even want to wrap my brain around that, but like,
Pretty soon we'll be living in each other's brains. They're just gonna like insert us.
And as long as it's like you guys, I don't want to live in anybody else's brains.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I can select the brains I can live in, that'd be awesome.
I want to pick and choose, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I would probably agree with you because, like, they're just the access to the movies that we're getting and the variety is so much broader than it has been in the past. And like all the indie films are so much more accessible than they were even in the decade before this one.
Yeah.
So it makes a big difference.
When I was talking about this in a couple episodes ago, I think, and I was talking about how VOD used to be a curse and used to be like,
I was just
oh no,
gonna say that.
like straight to
Straight to
video.
video.
But now it's like, hell yeah, that means I can get it immediately, and like as soon as it comes out, people can get to it on digital, and it's just, it has made access so much easier, and it's no longer this like kind of awful label that we put on things that makes it seem bad, but more like an exciting thing that means that there's more for us to watch and there's more exciting things for us to access.
Yeah, it's the decade that that didn't become a pejorative, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, nice one. That is a good word.
It's
I was an English major, so.
And I think because of that, we've gotten such a diverse range of voices. I mean, this year finally, Tigers Are Not Afraid obviously was around before that, but it's on Shudder, and even these streaming platforms like Shudder and Hulu and Amazon and Netflix are picking up directors who might not get like big budgets and big studios behind them, but these streaming platforms, especially Shudder, are giving, and Hulu now with the Into the Dark series.
Yep, I was just gonna say that. Like Sophia Takal did
Yeah.
New Year, New You last year, and you know, it's like they're like an hour and a half movies. They're straight onto Hulu, and look at her now. She's got Black Christmas under her belt, and she's only gonna go from there. She's done other stuff in the past that's amazing. Always shines. Ooh. But like, look at what the platform that they're giving her.
And that's just, it's just awesome to see that, especially this year. And I think just in the past couple of years, but this year especially, women and people of color are given more of a voice. And I mean, there's still a lot of work to do, but I think this decade has seen like an exponential increase in recognition of people who are not cis white men behind the camera, which is what we have needed desperately.
Right. Definitely. And I think that if you look back over the last couple of years, even alone, I mean, look at what Shudder has done. You know, it gave us, last year it gave us Satan's Slaves. It gave us Terrified.
Slaves.
Yes.
This year it gave us One Cut of the Dead.
Well, again, and they gave us Revenge. And they gave us Revenge.
Yes.
Revenge. Oh gosh, yeah.
And it gave us Cold Hell last year, which I don't know if you guys have seen, but love that movie.
I can't remember. No, I think Mandy hit VOD before it came to Shudder. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think Shudder definitely gave it like a lot more of a push.
Definitely.
But it's just awesome that like international horror, I feel like, is finally getting more recognition. It's not, and again, like with Shudder, it's actually giving people access to it because a lot of the time people don't know about these things. It's like no one's fault other than like just U.S. distribution. But now that these platforms are like, hell yeah, we're going to give international films distribution, I feel like it just made the pool that we can pull from in horror so much deeper and wider, and it makes me so happy.
I was looking at these and I was thinking to myself, like, if these were all released maybe the decade before, I never would have seen any of these movies.
Right?
Right.
Exactly.
Never. I remember, because my two sisters like horror. We're the spooky girls in town. And
I love it.
we would just, like, every other month, like, when we were younger in our teens, like, we would just go on Google and look up what movies were coming out. Like, upcoming horror, 2005, what was going to be coming out, because you didn't have it. It wasn't as accessible. And even some of those I didn't see until probably this past decade.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't know where to get them. Like, the movie stores are gone, and I have, like, a billion DVDs, but now I don't even have a DVD player. I stream everything, which is the opposite of what I usually do. And it's just, it's amazing because, like Satan's Slaves, I never would have seen that if I didn't have Shudder.
No, exactly. Well, and I mean, to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, Jessica, the not only is it the streaming options, but over the last decade, we've seen a lot more of a renaissance in movies that were thought to be lost at time. I mean, this year alone, Vinegar Syndrome put out Spookies, what had been, like, caught up in rights hell for, like, years, and people said was never going to get released. And now we're seeing, you know, these films from a previous time that you never would have had a chance to see that are finally coming out because of the companies that are now alive, you know?
Oh, speaking of that, I got my copy of Spookies in the mail today.
Yay! I need to
so
watch it.
excited to watch it.
Doesn't Shudder even have a film right now, a Christmas film that they said was previously only available on bootleg for
Deadly
years?
Games?
Deadly Games.
Which I almost watched that yesterday, but I was going to watch it while I was doing something else. I was like, shit, I can't read subtitles while doing this other thing. So I am going to watch it, but haven't yet. But that's crazy. Like, there's the access that we're getting. And was it, like, Tammy and the T-Rex now, too?
Yes, Tammy
I also
and the
got Tammy and the T-Rex in the mail.
I'm very excited for that. I've never seen it. I'm so
Jessica, give me panic attack.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Jessica doesn't like animatronic dinosaurs. It's my favorite thing ever, and I know it's terrible, but it makes me laugh.
I am horrified by them. I don't even want
We're going to have her on a future episode so we can delve even deeper into that fear and really psychoanalyze this, because I cannot wait.
I'm going to, like, I've got stories for that one if you want to do that. Because,
we're totally doing it.
We're doing it.
It's
Don't
going to
worry.
happen soon.
It's happening.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
But also terrified at the same time. Like, my hands are clamming just talking about it.
Oh, God, no. Okay.
No, it's okay. This is, like, as close to
amazing.
scared as I get. Like, for real.
So, yeah, this is a little, like, as Mary Beth would say, a little tease for what's going to come up eventually next year.
Yeah, stay tuned, everyone.
Stay tuned.
Now, that said, I don't think the decade started that great. To be perfectly honest.
It didn't.
It didn't. It didn't.
Because, like, as you said, I think, Mary Beth, that, like, there comes a point where it became really difficult to choose. But I don't know about you guys, but I didn't really have too much of a problem choosing in the beginning.
No, I didn't either.
So should we just kind of dive right in?
Let's do it.
All right.
So, 2010.
2010. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So this is a weird choice, but there's a story behind it. My favorite of 2010 was The Last Exorcism.
Okay.
Which is a found footage film about an exorcism. Shocker. But I thought it was such an effective found footage film. I think one of the reasons why it was so effective was I watched it with my best friend in college. We were going through a lot of stuff with, like, housing, and we were in temporary housing because of all of this, like, mold situation in college, and we said, we need to watch a scary movie. It's Halloween. Let's go. And we watched it, and it was really scary for me, and it was really effective in a way that I thought it was going to be cheesy, and I actually really thought it was a great example of how to use found footage in an effective way. So it was between that one and Let Me In, but The Last Exorcism won out. So that was for me. And I also realized that a Serbian film came out that year, which is by no means a favorite or a movie I will ever be watching. But
I've
to
never
mark the
seen
Nobody's
it.
favorite, right?
No desire to see it. Never seen it.
Okay, good. I was like, I hope I didn't just shame someone, but I also don't feel bad shaming you if that's your favorite movie.
Fuck no. No offense,
But-
but fuck no.
What an interesting way to start the decade with a Serbian film as one of the first movies of the decade. Anyway.
Yeah, if like shock value, maybe it gets like 10 points, but yeah. I like that choice because that wasn't even on my list of movies that I saw that year. It's probably in one of the other years somewhere, but I love Ashley Bell, who she's in Carnage Park as well. She's got such a scary look to her, and in that movie, I've seen that in the theater with my sister, and you're gonna hear me and my sister went to go see this because that's my person to go see these movies with.
I love it. I love that
course.
though.
But that one was she was so scary, and the way she contorts is horrifying.
I think, and like in a previous episode, I talked about how much possession movies scare me too, and I know that it's not always the most effective thing for people, but like possession movies have usually find their way to freak me out, and I also really do enjoy found footage movies. Two subgenres that not everyone's a fan of, but I thought it was an effective combination of two very intense subgenres for me personally. So
I agree. I mean, you know my opinion on like possession movies. I mean, I kind of almost canceled myself with my thoughts on Exorcism or The Exorcist, but I think it's important to point out too, and you guys might be too young for this, but it starred Professor Lasky.
Huh?
I'm getting a lot of crickets.
Crickets.
Patrick Fabian is the priest in it, and he was Jeremiah Lasky on Saved by the Bell, the college years.
Oh, I watched that, but I don't remember anyone's name.
He was the hunky professor,
Oh.
and I loved him. I wanted him to be my professor.
Terry just aged himself.
I did totally just age myself.
I love you. I'm just kidding. Terry, what was your favorite of 2010?
Well, okay. So 2010 was the year of the remake. We had a lot of remakes of old films, remakes of new foreign films, and I can't argue with your choice about The Last Exorcism, but I think you kind of dropped the ball in the real gem of 2010. I'm talking about a remake of a film that blows the original out of the water. I'm talking, of course, about the 2010 remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
What?
I'm kidding.
Oh, God.
I
almost... Wow. Terry, I almost called the police. Terry, I was
nope,
like...
sorry,
Terry,
guys, show's canceled.
I was like, someone's holding a gun to Terry's head. I gotta call the cops. Like, something is wrong.
Terry's possessed.
I was scrolling through the list and I saw that and I was like, "Oh my god, I gotta throw that in somewhere." And I didn't know how long I was gonna keep the bit up, but the silence after me saying that was just perfect. So thank you. I was really worried that someone was gonna say, "Oh my god, that was mine too," because that movie is shit. I don't like trashing movies, but that movie is fucking shit. No, I'm sorry.
I was a heart attack. I was like, "Oh no."
No, my choice is actually a remake. It's Let Me In.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Because the thing is that like I enjoyed the original Let the Right One In, but it kind of left me cold, and I don't mean that as a pun. I didn't mean that as a pun. I know, but I kind of felt like there was a detachment to the story, and it didn't really affect me in ways that a lot of people it affected them. But then I saw Let Me In, and I think it's the rare remake that happens when you give a fantastic director good source material and let him go wild. I think Matt Reeves, the director, he's not talked about an awful lot, and I don't really know why, because I mean, you know, he gave us Cloverfield, he gave us Let Me In, he made me actually care about Planet of the Apes again. I think his work is really solid, and I personally think that this is a better movie than the original. I know, but I do, and I think it has such a fascinating performance by Richard Jenkins. And even the author
I love the
loved this
movie, but I don't
adaptation.
agree with you. But that's okay.
I know, I know, I know that's not what I'm in the minority on that. But I don't know. This movie just really, I really liked it a lot.
It was. I mean, I think I agree with you that it is an amazing remake. I think it. I lost the words, but I think it definitely takes this. I was like, oh no. I think it takes the source material and makes something really affecting. Like you said, I just think there's something about cold Sweden that really gets me.
It's cold.
But have you read the book?
No, not yet.
Cool. No, I'm just wondering. It's a really good book. I really like that. The author also wrote Border.
I don't think I even knew that it was based on a book.
Oh yeah, it's really good. It gets like really deep into like gender and sexuality in a way that the movies don't really delve into. That's super fascinating.
That was actually one of the things that I preferred about the original, is that I feel like they at least touched on it a little bit, and it's just not non-existent in the American version.
No, it is. You're right. But I think what bothered me, I guess, about the original, and it's been, I haven't seen it in so many years, but I just remember being really confused because all of a sudden it's showing like an up close look at the vampire's genital area, and I was like, what is this even happening? And it totally didn't make any sense to me. Now, like, looking back on it now and knowing what the story is really about, it made more sense. But like at the time, I was like, what? This is weird. Why
and that's
are we
understandable. They tried to put it in there, but didn't do a ton with it. It did feel a little bit rushed in terms of like that aspect, but
yeah,
cool.
But that was mine.
Cool.
What about you, Jessica? Thank you.
All right. So I'm a big Adam Green fan. Love him. I love his movies. And so that was the year that Frozen and Hatchet 2 came out.
I was hoping someone was going to pick Frozen.
Speaking of cold, he's got such a way of going back to old school horror, and even in a time where that wasn't popular to do, kind of like how it is now. I mean, for the early 2010s, I thought that he always had a unique way of just giving some genuine scares and throwing back to the movies that he really liked. And I think that Frozen and Hatchet, the whole series, does that. Just, it's not everybody's cup of tea. I know it's not like the best made movies ever, but they are to me. And I love Hatchet.
I actually haven't seen Hatchet, but Frozen was one of the first movies I remember like illegally downloading and streaming. It was on one of those like weird lists that was like indie horror movies you've never seen, and it was on there, and I watched it and was like, oh my god, horror movies can not have monsters in them and can be really fucking awful and real. And I just remember
the elements are scary.
Yeah. I remember
made me glad
really
I don't
enjoying
ski.
that. God, seriously, that made me never want to go skiing ever.
No. Oh god, and like frostbite is just like,
god.
Nope.
It was
awful.
awful.
Not for me. And then, then you have like Victor Crowley and taking it to like a different area, like the swamps, and I just thought, I was so excited when there was a Hatchet 2, and then when Victor Crowley came out, I think that was like a couple years ago, I went bananas. So just like all that, I was just like, I really love it. So it was like between Adam Green's movies and like Black Swan, because that's my range.
Yeah.
That was going to be a runner-up for me.
It was hard. It was hard to choose, and only because I'm biased towards Adam Green, I made that my first choice. But I mean, Black Swan's going to be like one of those classic movies in another 30 years.
Yeah,
for sure.
I saw that movie with my grandmother.
Oh wow,
that's a good one.
Wow.
Yeah, that was quite an experience, especially when Mila Kunis goes down on Natalie Portman.
That's what I was just thinking.
My grandmother just like turned to me and goes, "Well, that was interesting." And I was
it was, Grandma.
Yes, Mimi.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, my sister's ex-husband once thought it was a good idea to watch Borat with my grandparents.
No!
Oh,
yeah.
No!
That was a really interesting night.
No.
I just immediately just saw balls on the face.
Yeah.
So did my grandparents.
I have secondhand embarrassment just from hearing that. Like, my soul withered away a little bit.
So I think that's like that's actually kind of another podcast, right? Is like the movies that like you see with your parents. Like I remember this one time I would walk downstairs. My parents had rented Jerry Maguire, and I walked downstairs and all I hear is "Never stop fucking me." And I turned around and walked right back up the stairs. Like, nope, not engaging on this mantra. I'm like, it's not happening.
Goodbye. On that note, Molly, what was your favorite of 2010?
So I feel like I need to preface for all of my favorites. I usually pick my favorites based on what I want to rewatch the most.
That's fair. That's valid.
Like Labyrinth is my favorite movie of all time because I've seen it thousands of times and I can recite the entire thing while I watch it.
Okay. Love that.
Love that movie.
So Black Swan was my runner-up. Love that one. But I actually picked Paranormal Activity 2 for my top choice.
Oh, interesting.
That was on there for me too, Molly.
Yeah.
Okay. I also considered Paranormal Activity 2.
Yeah. I love that. I'm not going to say I love the whole franchise. I love the first 3 films.
Yes, they're so good.
And I, like, up until that point, like, the Paranormal Activity movies were, like, the scariest shit. Like, for some reason, found footage movies scare me more than anything. So the first 3 Paranormal Activity movies, Blair Witch Project, like, first one scares the crap out of me still to this day. So I actually just rewatched Paranormal Activity 2 like within the past couple months, and it still scares the shit out of me.
I think it's probably my favorite of that series.
Yeah. I think it's the scariest of the series for sure.
Yeah, I think more people like the third one because it like gives answers and stuff. But like, I really like the second one. I think it's a good choice.
I like that.
They upped
I
the
like
ante on that one too.
Yeah,
they really did.
Yeah, and I like it because it's a sequel and a prequel rolled into one.
right.
Yeah,
because like it starts before the first film, but then it ends after the first film, which is kind of a weird way to do it.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, but it's cool because it adds to the mythos, but it also doesn't
Moves
give
the story
too much
forward.
away necessarily. It's still kind of like, okay, you're hinting that some kind of deal was made at some point, and that's why this is happening, but it doesn't fully dive into it. And I like that the third one does that, and I do enjoy the third one, but I kind of like that there's still some mystery in the second one.
Cool. All right. So that was 2010. Now?
Yes.
God. 2011. So this one was hard for me because there's 2 that I really enjoyed, but my number 1 for 2011 is Insidious.
Okay.
Insidious made me scream out loud. I absolutely hated and loved it. It was, like I said, it was one of the first movies that made me actually scream out loud, and it had this... I rewatched it recently, and it wasn't as scary as I remember it being, but I think the tension that James Wan built in that movie is just so good. I think this is one of his first movies. Is it one of his first movies?
Well, it's like it's the movie that kind of brought him back into the public eye after like Dead Silence, which I think is underrated. Kind of,
I like Dead
ended
Silence.
it.
But I feel like that's where he's like. I think we talked about this before, but like where his style really comes out, and I just absolutely adore that movie. And my runner-up was I Saw the Devil, which I obviously saw very recently, but is absolutely perfection. So it's a hard choice, but I think I chose Insidious because I had a longer history with that movie in terms of how many times I've seen it and the emotional impact it had on me at a younger age.
I'll piggyback off you on that one because that is one of my favorites. That's my top choice for 2011, if not the entire decade, because
cool.
Going back and looking at this and thinking about all the movies that I liked before Insidious, you know, nothing really scared me. I'm so desensitized. And I remember going to see that movie in the theater. Me and my boyfriend at the time actually saw the poster in Universal Studios. They have a movie theater, and it's like on the boardwalk. And I remember seeing the poster for that and being like, that looks like a piece of trash. Because, you know, I'm like stuck up 20-year-old. And I was like, that doesn't look that good. And look at the poster now. It still looks horrible. It looks like a straight to video. Like, what is that?
It's a terrible poster.
I'll catch it in the red box. And we went to go see it. We went to go see it in the theater only because my boyfriend at the time, his best friend and girlfriend were not horror people. And they wanted to go see a movie that was like that's the only thing we can do around here most of the times. And that was like a safe movie. I don't remember it being like promoted or marketed or anything. I just remember, that's that stupid movie. Yeah, that should be good for them. They should be okay with that. And we got into the theater. I'm sitting next to this girl. She was so nice. And the music started. That opening with that, what was it, like, it's a piano. I remember hearing them say something about it being a piano, and that score. And the title card came up, and I was like, holy fucking shit.
The screen wide title card.
Yes, and I was like, oh my god, she got up and left halfway through, and I was like, this is what I have been waiting for. So the next day, that was on like a Friday night. I was terrified to drive home. The next day, I got my sister because I was like, you're the one I go see these movies with. I thought this was gonna suck. We went straight to the movie theater the next day and saw it, and still terrified.
That's the best experience, though, that, like, you saw it and immediately, like, I gotta go see it again with my person. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. Get in the car.
I'm not telling you what we're doing.
If it wasn't so late that night, and if I wasn't, like, frozen in fear, I would have went and saw it again that night. But I just needed to digest it. It's so different from everything. I don't know what it was. I think it was, like, the visuals that, like, you know, like, I'm talking about Hatchet the year prior, Hatchet 2. I'm not scared of that. But for some reason, that movie was the beginning of, you know, James Wan's career, and I just thought this is what horror was about, and I think that's what made up a lot of the decade that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it introduced to me effective jump scares that don't feel cheap.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that movie had jump scares that I appreciated. Which was, I think, relatively, from what I can remember, a relatively new sensation of, like, feeling not angry at the jump scare, but almost like, okay, that was a deserved jump scare. And I loved that feeling of being like, oh my god, I can actually appreciate the art of an effective scare.
Yep.
Right.
Definitely.
And I'll go off that, and actually that was my number one choice as well.
Oh, cool.
I mean, for all those reasons, he created such a unique style with the film, and I loved the whole, now I'm not going to forget what he calls it. What is the place where the ghosts are called?
Further.
What?
The Further.
Further, that's right. I kept thinking the other. No, that's not right. But yeah, like the whole mythology around the Further and really the sequels too. I mean, I don't love all the sequels as much as this one, but the way that he was able to build upon it, and not only did it really launch his career, but I loved that even though she's been in horror forever, I love that it made Lynn Shay a household name.
Right?
Yeah.
I love her so fucking much.
And she's been in everything.
Yeah,
she really has. But I think, like you said, Molly, it really got people to recognize her and, like, really appreciate her finally, which I love as, like, she's an older actress who, like, has been around but really got that recognition finally, and, like, got to be, like, a big mainstay in a big franchise. It's like, it's badass.
And I love that people loved her in this film to the point where, like, in later films they made sure that she was in it and prominently featured, even though realistically with the way the first one ended she probably shouldn't have been. But they found a way to make it, and I love it, and I want her to be in everything. And I'm actually, sidebar, I'm excited to see her in The Grudge, but we'll get to that later.
I didn't realize she was in The Grudge, but I'm so excited. I just learned that this week. I'm very excited for that.
I love Lynn Shay. I'm fine with her being in everything. So
me too. Okay, Terry, so you're the only person who didn't have Insidious on their list. What did you pick?
Okay, I'll set the scene. I missed this movie. I missed this movie in the theaters. I didn't think it was gonna be worth my time. I thought it was gonna be terrible. It looked pretty bad. But I finally rented it. I sat down on my couch. I turned the lights off. I cranked the sound up. And I witnessed a first act where the tension was constantly escalating to a pitch-perfect moment. And I remember this to this day, of a man walking outside our protagonist's bedroom window, back and forth, back in. Then he walks out of the shadows and into the bedroom, and I screamed. I jumped out of my chair. My two cats took off running and hid for the rest of the night. And my number one is Insidious as well.
Yay!
That was actually scaring me as you were describing it.
I was like, I started sweating. I'm like,
got a window behind me, and I was like, oh my god.
That's one of the scariest scenes, yeah.
It is awful.
Like, I was watching that, and I'm like, oh god, he's out. What is going on here? This guy's walking outside, and then he walks in. I swear to God, my cats did not forgive me for the rest of the night. They just took off and hid, because I screamed so loud. But yeah, I mean, we've kind of all talked about why, but it's a movie that, rejuvenated his James Wan's career after Dead Silence kind of almost ended it. Had so many iconic moments. I'm talking about, the demon that was in the baby's room, the man in the shadows that I was mentioned above, the demon growling behind Josh, the creepy woman smile in the further. It's original, terrifying, and it was rated PG-13.
Yeah. Rated PG-13.
It's great. I mean, yay, we had like one movie so far that everyone agreed on. But I did want to give a shout out though to the I Was a Teenage Werebear segment of Chillerama. Have you guys watched Chillerama?
No. I was like, what are you talking
about?
Okay, so it was like an anthology that came out that year, and one of the segments was called I Was a Teenage Werebear.
Okay.
And 2011 was an important year for me personally because it's when I finally was pulled out of the closet.
Okay.
And I remember watching Chillerama, and it got to the segment, and it starred Sean Paul Lockhart, which, if you are a gay person of a certain age, you will know him as Brent Corrigan. He is a porn star. A gay porn star was in this movie. And it reminded me that horror could be completely gay, and there could be gay people making the horror movies because the director, Tim Sullivan, is gay. So shout out to Tim Sullivan for making this movie at a time when I really needed it.
Cool.
That's awesome.
I'm really glad that you brought it up because I had written it down, but I was like, don't go up Adam Green's ass too much, Jessica. Keep yourself, put him in once, and that's it. So I am so glad that you mentioned that. I'm glad that was important for you.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember anything else about Chillerama except that I think there was like a giant sperm in one of the episodes.
Yeah, it attacks the city.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to watch.
Yeah, is it weird that I want to see it more now?
I know. I was like, ooh,
it's so much fun. It's so much fun.
But I Was a Teenage Werebear is about this kid who's struggling with his intersexuality of being gay while it's a 60s musical. Like, it is a beach party musical, and instead of like getting bit by a werewolf, he gets bit by literally a bear, like a gay bear. And so he turns into a werebear, and he becomes like this big butch leather daddy when he turns, and it's ridiculous, it's funny, but it also, like I said, reminded me that you can have gay and horror, and that's a great thing. So that's just a shout out.
Cool.
But yeah. All right. 2012. Mary Beth, what did you...
Okay. This was a hard year for me because there's 3 I really wanted to choose, but I ultimately ended up picking Ben Wheatley's The Kill List. Which is...
I have not seen The Kill List.
I haven't seen it either.
It's so good. It's folk horror. It's weird. So when I first saw it, I wasn't totally sold on it because I saw it before I was kind of into slow burn horror and before I had an appreciation for that. But it is this movie that is like this intricate web of weird cultist stuff. And I really love folk horror, and I watched it recently again this year, and I just absolutely love the kind of, like, to be cheesy, the onion that it is and all of the layers you peel back as you watch it. It's just it's so masterfully done. And I think not as many people right now. I don't think as many people have seen it, and I want more people to see it. And it just is. It's a movie that has blown me away, and that I think about it quite often. And this was a movie. It like came out earlier in Britain, and it had a bunch of other releases at festivals, but it eventually finally came to the U.S. in 2012. So that was my number one of 2012, followed closely by The Loved Ones, which is an Australian horror movie that is totally fucked up, but twisted in the best way. And then VHS.
Am I pretty enough?
Oh, no, it's going to be in my head all night again.
You're welcome. That's whatever I think of when I hear someone talk about The Loved Ones.
Yep. And then VHS. The anthology found footage. Yes. It's not my top, but it was close. I think VHS absolutely shocked me and how much I enjoyed it and how much some of the segments really scared me, and the creativity behind the usage of found footage and the different stories that were told. And I think it showed that found footage can be really beautifully used in short form. And I think it gave a voice to a lot of up-and-coming filmmakers as well. And I like the second one. I think I've only seen 1 and 2. But I think VHS was like a pretty defining moment for found footage and anthology series, at least in my head. So that's my runner-up. But my number one, like I said, is The Kill List.
I need to go revisit it because I remember seeing it years ago and I didn't like it. But I don't know. I don't think I was in that kind of like slow burn horror mood that I am now. Like it's like totally my shit now. But at the time, I was all about the like, well, this in the Insidious and like the we're coming out of like the Saws and like the gore and like so I don't think I gave it enough credit. And I need to go rewatch.
That was what happened to me too. I think it was one of those movies that came out at a weird time when a lot of, like you said, Insidiouses were coming out, and a lot of it was about jump scares and possession and like very, very tangible monsters. It wasn't a more metaphorical look at things. And so I think this was kind of a sleeper film, but I think it's getting more appreciation now, and I want to give it that appreciation because I love Ben Wheatley as a director, and I think this is just like an absolutely phenomenal folk horror, especially if you love folk horror. Like it's definitely worth checking out. I won't spoil it because there's a lot of parts to it that like you just need to kind of see it and experience it. And it's pretty short too, which is great. Terry, what is your favorite of 2012?
So this was an easy pick for me as well. It's The Cabin in the Woods. It's everything I wanted in a horror comedy, co-written by Drew Goddard, who also wrote Cloverfield. This is also his directorial debut. It's so smart, from the way it deconstructs virtually every subgenre of horror, to the performances, to Chris Hemsworth hot buzz cut in it. This movie is basically...
Christ
Hemsworth's very Christ-like buzz. Wait, no. This movie is me in film, and I just love that the third act goes into some truly bonkers directions and unleashes every horror monster conceivable. I was laughing with mad glee the entire time. It kind of made Cabin in the Woods movies like just, it took the steam out of them. And I think it's a smart movie. I think it's directed to perfection, and I can't say enough good things about it.
I want to give a shout out to the coffee cup bong in that movie too. That was pretty genius.
Yes,
it's amazing.
I love that.
It's just so much. Yes, and the way it ends, like I just it's so good. And every single time I watch it, I pick up new little things or see little new jokes that I missed before, and it's just it's so good.
Well, and it's my go-to movie to show my friends who are like, I don't really like horror, but I know it's Halloween and we want to watch something scary. So it is my like go-to movie for my friends who don't like horror movies but want to be a part of the spookiness. So that's my favorite one to show people that are kind of on the fence about the genre.
Yeah. And I mean, and going back to, I forget which one of you said it, but like the kind of the movies that you go back to, I have watched this movie so many times since it came out. It's something that like, if it's on, I will just watch it. Or if I don't know what to watch, I'll just throw it on. Cause I love it. Yeah.
Good choice. Oh.
What about you, Jessica?
So this is a dead tie. It's between The Loved Ones, because I love The Loved Ones. I know you've seen me talk about it on Twitter.
Am I pretty enough?
One of my favorites. But one day I want to cosplay Lola so bad.
Oh my god,
and
please.
I'm going to make that happen one day when I get up enough courage to actually do it.
Please.
So I love The Loved Ones. Brilliant. Another simple idea, kind of gone bonkers. I love the level of gore and the level of cringe, and the visuals of it is just stunning. I love like that stupid song, like that little girl / horrific woman just kind of binding together in a villain was amazing. It's one of my top for the decade as well. But another one is Ty West, The Innkeepers.
I haven't seen that yet.
I haven't seen that either.
Who hasn't seen it? Mary Beth?
Mary Beth.
And Molly.
Molly and Mary Beth. Your homework for tonight.
I'll put on my watch list
to watch The Innkeepers. It's a total slow burn. It's such a moody movie. And the tension just builds, and I don't want to say that there's like a huge payoff in the end, it's great, but there's nothing that goes like super bonkers or anything. It is just a movie that's going to leave you filled with that tension for like hours after you watch it.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Now, is this the one that stars the girl from Aquamarine?
Yes, Sarah Paxton.
She is also a mermaid in this one. Oh, she's so great. Her and Pat Healy together, like, this is a role that, I mean, I don't know, I'm not familiar with too many of her other movies. I know that like Aquamarine, she's totally different in this. She's so relatable and down to earth and real, and so is he. Their dynamic is different. It's different for a horror movie. It's not like the couple, it's not like the strong woman either. It's so like grounded, and that's what makes it, I think, really special.
Cool.
So is it worse that they haven't seen it, or that I don't really like it?
I always get initially mad when somebody says that they haven't seen a movie, like my poor soon-to-be husband when we were going through this list, and I was like, you haven't seen any of these. What were you doing without me your entire life? Like, the last decade, what were you doing? But I'm actually really excited because he saved himself and was like, well, now we have all these movies to watch. And I was like, yeah, cute. Yeah, very cute. But I was like, but Jesus, like, what?
It is always very interesting to me where I'm like, you haven't seen this horror movie? They're like, Mary Beth, you live in a bubble. I'm like, no, I don't. You just don't live in my bubble.
Yeah, welcome to my bubble. No, I never begrudge anybody for not seeing anything. That's just my initial reaction. But I'm excited because now I get to share with you, go watch this fucking movie now.
Okay. I mean, I've heard lots of good things about it, so it's always been one that's been on my radar, but for some reason I just never have gotten around to actually watching it. So now I will.
Yay. It's fantastic. And I love all of Ty West's movies, so this one, it's different. Again, it was just something kind of different from like the Saws, like you said, like Insidious and all that. It's just something really, it is a classic ghost story.
I feel like I need to go back and watch Ty West films because I have not liked a single movie he's done.
Oh.
And I don't. Everyone loves them, and I just it makes me wonder what I'm missing. So I feel like I need to go back and rewatch this and The House of the Devil, because it's been a while. I saw them when they first came out, but I don't know. Maybe I was in a different headspace then too for those.
They're definitely some of his movies are not for everybody. I love a slow burn. I want to dissect things, and I think that's what happens when movies happen too fast for me. I like to sit there and I like to digest and I like to chew on things, and I think that the slow burn movies give me a little bit more time to like know what I'm seeing and figure things out. I like to put themes together and I like to make those little lists in my head, and so not everybody likes to do that. Some people are like, let's cut to the chase. What's going on?
Right.
And not all of his movies have like a big giant third act, which I would understand would be problematic. It's a preference. We don't have to agree, Terry.
I still love you anyway.
Love you anyway.
What about you, Molly?
I had a hard time picking one for this year. Not because there were a lot, but because there were just like a couple that I really, really liked. I think if I'm gonna stick with my whole ones that I rewatch the most, it's gonna be Cabin in the Woods also.
Okay.
Cool.
I mean, I watch that movie all the time, probably like at least once a year since I first saw it. And it's, if not more than that. Like you said, like I love all the different creatures that are in it. I mean, the merman kill is the greatest thing in cinema.
It's so good.
And the shit that film went through to get out there,
right,
is also like, I'm just rooting for it. Like, yeah, you guys did it, and it was great. It was worth all the pain you went through.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that was worth all the hype. Like, I just remember hearing about it and hearing about it and hearing about it, and it never came out. And then typically when that happens, it's like, oh, but I agree. It's so good.
Yeah. And my runner-ups. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say about just on Cabin in the Woods. Does anybody remember being shocked by what it actually was? Because I don't know if I was just again, not like exposed to the marketing because I don't watch a lot of like actual TV, especially back then. But I remember kind of knowing what it was about, but then also being completely blown away by what it was about. Or
I
is
went
that
in
just
with
me?
not knowing anything.
I also went in without
I was
knowing
surprised by
anything.
everything. I went in totally blind for that one.
Yeah, same.
But close runner-ups for that year for me were VHS, obviously, and Sinister actually was up there for me.
Sinister. Yep.
That one,
I had Sinister written down, and then I kind of was like, eh.
that one, it's one like the very end of the film. I don't love.
Yeah.
But everything leading up to that is so good, and it creeps me out. And I actually just rewatched it fairly recently, and it still was super creepy. And then that last scene, I was like, oh, why'd you do that? But
Yeah.
but the rest of it's really good.
All I remember from that is the fucking lawnmower.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ugh.
You don't need to say
my
anything
God.
else. The lawnmower. No. Nightmare fuel.
All of those
Just
tapes
no.
are just so
so
horrifying.
fucked
Or
up.
the family getting hung up on the tree.
Oh yeah, and it just lingers there
Oh,
as
God.
they stop. Yeah, as they just start to slowly stop.
I just
moving.
got goosebumps.
Me
No,
too,
that
because you
movie.
think of yourself, you're like, oh, that could be me and my family. That's
Yeah.
like, oh, God, I'm not going there.
Yeah. Oof.
Cool.
All right.
Okay, so that was 2012.
2013.
2013. So this was there were a lot of movies that came out that year that I saw like last year and the year before that I didn't realize came out in 2013, but the two that I'm having a hard time choosing between, and I think my number one I think is the Evil Dead remake by Fede Alvarez. The
So
Conjuring is so close behind it. It is like very close behind it. But I have such a love for the Evil Dead, and I was so concerned that this movie was going to be horseshit, and it was so fucking good. Like the ending when it's like raining blood, it's all about her story, and they did the thing where they made it Evil Dead, but not trying to be a shot-for-shot remake, and I was just absolutely blown away by it, and so that is why it's my number one.
Yeah.
Good pick.
It's a great pick, especially considering that it's ironic that I just talked about how Cabin in the Woods took the steam out of the subgenre.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, like, well...
Except for that one.
It's also my pick.
Oh, really?
because,
Cool.
It's another one of those rare remakes that proves that not all remakes in the 21st century are bad. It's gory. It's incredibly bloody. I loved how audacious it is. Like you just mentioned that it rains fucking blood in the finale. I remember laughing in the theater just at how amazing and gnarly it was. The practical effects are fantastic.
The practical effects are fucking amazing. Like
that arm that she cuts
arm.
off and it just sort of like just dangles and then falls. Like so good. Or the woman, she cuts her face off.
It's just, it's ridiculous. Like, it's disgusting, and I loved it. Like, it was beautifully disgusting.
Yeah. And have you guys seen the unrated cut? It's even better in my opinion.
Oh, man.
I don't know if I have
I
seen the
don't
unrated
think I
cut.
have.
It so it was like it never got released, and then all of a sudden this year it got released on digital, like VOD, and if you bought the original on iTunes, you got the unrated cut.
Oh.
When it got released this year, and then I think they also put it on a Blu-ray. But it's even better. It's even more gory. There's like extra moment. I think it actually adds a couple minutes to the runtime.
Oh.
But this is one thing that I will say: if I wasn't canceled for my Exorcist comments, this next part is going to probably send me packing. I love this movie more than any other movie in the Evil Dead series. Sorry, Dead by Dawn fans. This
But
film
honestly,
is better
like,
for me.
I don't
okay.
disagree. I don't necessarily agree, but I can see why you think that.
Yeah.
Like, I get it.
I don't think that's an unreasonable statement.
Yes, yes, exactly.
I remember putting it on Twitter and people going, no, you're wrong. It's good, but you're wrong.
Well, I think
but no, I love this movie. I think this movie is the best of them.
Well, and I feel like the original Evil Dead trilogy serves a very different purpose than Evil Dead in my head. I think the Evil Dead trilogy, the first one isn't as much, but 2 and 3 are like campy and silly and like a little bit over the top. But then this one I think is meant to go like full body horror and not as silly, I guess. And I think they just serve very different purposes.
Yeah.
They
Well, and
freshened
did didn't Sam Raimi even say that like what they did with the remake was what he wanted to do with the first film, but he didn't have like the budget and he was so young at the time. So it's kind of interesting to see like what the film could have been if he had made it, I don't know, what was that, like 30 years later? More than that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and like I respect the original series. I really respect the first movie. I think the fact that you see what he was able to do on a no budget, and like the we kind of talked, Mary Beth, about last episode about One Cut of the Dead, where it's like an ode to indie filmmaking, and that is indie filmmaking right there. Yeah. I don't know. I think the new one just really resonated with me a whole lot more.
Cool.
But what about you, Jessica?
I think it was 2013 from all the research that I did. I'm going to go... I really liked the Evil Dead remake, but I went out for sushi before I saw it, and I am not a queasy person, and that was the first time I ever felt actually sick in a theater. So bravo to the effects, because I was like, I can't watch the rest of this. I thought it was amazing. So anything that elicits a response from me, like emotionally or physically, is gonna get like an extra star. But I'm gonna put You're Next up at the top for my list. I really liked that. I thought it was different. I like the idea of a dinner party gone wrong, and I thought it had a genuinely good twist in the end. I didn't see it coming when I saw it, and I love that final girl.
Oh, she's so good.
Man, that final girl.
Erin was her name in the movie.
Erin was her name in the movie, but I just thought that I still to this day think, what a badass. That's so cool. I would have died in 2 seconds. I would have been the girl that got like cut by that piano wire or whatever the kind of wire that was. That would have been me.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was when I was like, this is a next level movie, when she like the slow-mo piano wire.
Ugh.
Ooh.
That's an awful way to die.
Right? Oh my god.
The thing I really liked about that movie, because that was up there on mine as well, is how the feeling of it changes the more you watch it. Mm-hmm. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, this is kind of scary and intense. And the second time I watched it, I was laughing my ass off, because it's really like a comedy of errors. These dipshit people are just fucking up the entire time, and this one woman is basically taking everyone down. So like I love that it can just change how you interact with the movie based on more viewings.
It's almost like a reverse Home Alone. Like, the more you watch Home Alone, the more you're like, this is fucking horrifying. You're laughing the first times, but then you're like, oh my god, this is like borderline like child kidnapping and child abuse. So you could, like,
and realistically, they should have died.
Yeah, realistically, everybody should have died in that movie or gone to prison or something. I'm like, those parents would never be able to parent ever again. So that is the exact effect that movie has. The more you watch it, the more you're like, this is hysterical. These people. Yeah. I love it.
That's a good choice.
That was a good point, Terry. I like that.
What about you, Molly?
It's funny because all of my top 3 for that year have been mentioned. I had The Conjuring, I had Evil Dead, I had You're Next. I had a really hard time picking, but I also went with You're Next. I absolutely love it. And like you said, like, it's so, I remember I'm pretty sure I saw it in theaters. And just being blown away, like, this is so intense, this is awesome. But then I watch it now just because I have so much fun watching it, and it cracks me up, especially like when the one little guy is like stabbing. He's like, "Why won't you die? You're making this hard for me." And it's just like the characters are so ridiculous in the best way, but they're also like believable characters, even though they're ridiculous. Like they're kind of caricatures, but not so far out there that they're not people that you can imagine actually existing.
Yeah, it feels very much like a precursor to Ready or Not.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That would be a good double feature.
That would be amazing double feature.
You might not like trust your significant other ever again after that.
Yep.
Or your family.
I also just made my parents watch You're Next because they were here visiting for Thanksgiving. And My mom was not a fan, but that's okay. I also made them watch Overlord while they were here, so.
Oh, wow. Your parents rule.
Yeah, my mom did not have that.
They didn't love it, but I made them. But yeah, it's such a good movie. And I feel like that was a really strong year for awesome women that were like final girls, but more than your typical final girl.
Yeah, I would.
They weren't just like they weren't just surviving; they were fighting back, kind of women, which was awesome.
Yeah, my second choice was Mama because I just love Jessica Chastain in that movie. I think the visuals in that are really great. Even though I'm not super hyped up on the CGI, I thought that's like my threshold right there. But Jessica Chastain's character, and I forgot her name too, is so cool and unique and different. She's not this like quaint woman who then becomes stronger in the end. She's like kind of a mess, and she is different, I guess, because I like identify with her being different, and I loved her in that. So yeah, you're right. It does it's like this. Looking at the list of the upcoming years, it's a interesting little push into strong female leads.
Yeah,
because even in The Conjuring, it had a ton of strong female leads in that, so it definitely was a noticeable trend.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. 2014.
2014.
So my pick was The Babadook.
Okay.
That movie just really took me by surprise, and I didn't expect to have such an emotional reaction to it. It wasn't what I was expecting. I thought it would be more of a monster movie than it was, but I think I loved that it wasn't as much of a monster movie. And it's Jennifer Kent's first feature, and I think it's just such an effective way of handling grief in a horror film, and I think it's one of the first movies I can think of in a long time that handles motherhood in such a nuanced and complex way. A lot of the time, mothers in horror are either evil or just secondary characters, and I think we talked earlier about just better diversity and better characters, and even like Jessica just mentioned with better female leads, I think this movie just really showcases how you can have these complex characters and create an effectively scary horror movie. I have watched this one a bunch of times. I get something new from it every single time I watch it, and it's just absolutely gorgeous and creepy, and somehow the Babadook became a queer icon, which is so weird and funny that was a thing. And then the second, Babadook was my number one, but then I wanted to do a shout out to A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Yes.
That's my number one pick.
I mean, I'm a vampire movie girl, so of course I had to give that one a shout out. So yeah, what about you, Terry?
So I have a little poem that I'd like to share.
Oh my god, okay.
If it's in a word or it's in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. The Babadook is mine as well. Yeah. It's everything you said. It's one of those movies that, like, if you go out on Amazon and you do a search, you will find my review on there. It used to be the top review and it's not anymore, but it's also the review that people were commenting on and saying this isn't a review, because it's the movie that kind of changed how I wrote about movies.
Oh, okay.
Because I looked at it like I like to do now, from more of a thematic aspect of it. And so I was digging in this Amazon review that's supposed to be about, should I buy this film or not, about how it's about grief and how it's about like this and that. And I just remember this one comment that was like, this is not a review. And then another comment, you spoiled it. And I'm like, I don't think I did. But yeah, so this movie's great. I love it. It changed how I think about movies. And yeah, it's fantastic.
Jessica, what about you?
What about you, Jessica?
It was also my pick, my top up there. Cool. I loved it. I just thought it was so beautiful and different. I'm not, I don't want to say not well versed, but I don't know a whole lot of those black and white movies. I haven't seen a whole lot of them. Those are like on my list of things to see. And I think it's kind of cool to have a modern movie in black and white because I appreciated it so much more. It's something so simple, and you don't really notice that it's in black and white. I don't think that makes like a huge difference, but it does visually. It completely changes the entire tone and the setting of the film. I thought that was just brilliant.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Molly?
Okay. This is the year where it starts to get really difficult for me. I have 4 movies listed and I still don't know which one is my favorite. Fuck. If I'm going by which ones I like the most, or not that I like most, that I've watched the most, it's The Guest.
Okay.
Oh my god, that's not even on my list.
I'm obsessed with The Guest. I watch it all the time. I listen to the soundtrack all the time. I love the music. I love the performances. Dan Stevens, right? And Micah Monroe. I absolutely love them. I use the gif of him walking out of the bathroom shirtless all the time.
Who doesn't?
Text me sometime, Molly.
Okay. It's really like the least horror of the films that I had listed on this one, but I love the style of it. And just like his performance, Dan Stevens, is so fucking good in that movie. Like, just from the subtle changes he did in his face, it's really unsettling, like how he can turn the charm on, and then the second someone's looking away, you can see the evil on his face.
Yes.
But I also, it's funny, none of the other movies I had have been mentioned yet.
Oh, what were
So
they?
I don't know if that's good or bad. I also listed Oculus, because I have an irrational fear of mirrors.
Okay.
Only Lovers Left Alive.
Oh, what a good movie.
Yeah, that's another one where I listen to that soundtrack all the time. And then this one is probably the most out there one. I also had Tusk.
I have Tusk on my list too.
Interesting.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay.
I've never seen Tusk.
It's ridiculous, and it's one of the horror films that my husband likes to watch with me a lot, and like we'll pretend to be walruses because we're weird.
Oh god, I love that.
Amazing.
Yeah, like we'll do put our hands out to the side and do the weird little hop that walruses do to get around.
My God.
Adopt me.
Oh, I love this.
As if people didn't think I was weird enough, I'm just going to put that out there now.
I absolutely love it.
I want you guys to film this. I want to see this.
Yeah.
Pixar didn't happen, right?
It's such a weird movie, but I love it because it just goes balls to the wall weird and doesn't care that it does that.
It's so Kevin Smith.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah.
100%.
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
All right, 2015.
2015. So my number one pick for that year is We Are Still Here.
Okay.
Which is a movie that caught me off guard. It was a movie that I kind of watched with my boyfriend Steve at kind of on a whim, and we were speechless at the end of it. We didn't expect it to be so gory, so bloody, so fucking vicious, but also so sad at the same time. I mean, I think I also seem to have a thing with like grief in horror movies. I think I really love the examination of grief through like a horrific lens, but it's such a beautiful film, and Barbara Crampton kills it in it, and I think it's just phenomenal. And it's short, and I think something that I have sometimes in horror movies that are super short, it doesn't feel like you get to the like emotional core of some of the characters, but the writing in that film is so tight and so good. You feel like really close to the characters, even though the runtime I think is less than 90 minutes. So that was my favorite of that year, followed closely by Spring, which is the first Benson and Moorhead film I ever saw, and that like started a love of their films. It is like Lovecraftian, and it's actually I don't think it's the first movie I watched with my boyfriend, but it's one of the first movies I remember watching with him because he's really into Lovecraft, and he was kind of helping me get into the genre, and we watched this movie, and it was so romantic and monstrous, and it was I just absolutely love that marriage of those genres. So yeah,
It's so
those
good.
are It's so good.
That one's on my list too.
Oh yeah,
I wish
it's
I
just
thought
so
about
good.
spring.
It's just beautiful and creepy, and is set in. Is it in Italy?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just the setting is beautiful, and it's so different from their other movies. I feel like their other movies are about like brotherhood and friendship, which they're awesome, but they take place kind of in the woods. And this one just feels so thematically different for them, but it's still beautiful. So, yeah.
It's super romantic.
It is.
It really is.
Find you
that
a girl
movie.
who turns into a weird tentacle beast.
That's what I told Nick.
I mean, I kind of turned into a walrus. Does that count?
Yes. You are a
noticing a
Lovecraftian
trend.
eldritch horror, Molly, and I love you. You're the eldritch horror of my heart.
It's beautiful. Love it.
Terry, what about you? What is your top for 2015?
Well, I'm kind of kicking myself for not picking spring, and I could switch to that, but what I chose was Krampus.
But Krampus is a very good pick.
I love this movie because I love Michael Dougherty. He gave me something that I watch every year for Halloween with Trick or Treat, and now he's giving me something I watch every year for Christmas. I've watched it every year that it's come out, or every year since it came out. It brings me back to like the days of like Gremlins and Amblin horror, and like I think it's so fantastic. The cast is stacked. It's you got Toni Collette, who is amazing and goes on to do fantastic work in Hereditary and this year's Knives Out, which she's so good in.
She's so good in that.
It has Adam Scott, who I've had a crush on ever since I saw him fake jerking off in that one HBO show. Do you remember that one? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No idea.
There is like
Everyone's like, absolutely not. What are you talking about?
there was like a show, and it was like very controversial, and it was on HBO, and God, what was it called? And he was it Tell Me You Love Me?
Was the party
Yes,
down?
I think it was Tell Me. No, I think it was called Tell Me You Love Me, and it was about three couples and a therapist they share. And there's one scene where it's obviously a prosthetic, but he is clear as day jerking off, and it spooges.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is on HBO.
That's
and I'm
impressive.
like, I have never loved him more. So, wow, that really took us down. I think we're just going to edit that out. This did not happen.
Nope. We're keeping
I'm bringing out the Men in Black flashlight. We're just going to ignore that this happened. So Krampus. Krampus is great. I love Krampus. It's funny. It's scary. It's monstrous. It's fantastic. And what about... I'm turning red. What about you, Jessica?
Okay. Sorry, I'm not thinking about that. All right. So 2015 is where it really started to get harder for me, because it's just like, I don't know, all of them just one after the other on this list. It was really hard to be like, oh, I liked this one over this one, because I think this is where we start to get a little bit more of like genre films. And so my top, I'm splitting it in half again. Sorry, I'm a cheater. No, I'm going to split this into three. I'm sorry.
God damn it.
I'm sorry. I had to go with The Invitation. Because
The Invitation?
it's just, I think that's one of the movies that I do recommend to people, because I don't know if that makes me like crazy or like, no, that makes me crazy. But I'm just like, no, you have to see this because it's not super horror. I like cult movies. Cults are fascinating to me. I know that it's like super common right now, but I can consume all of them and still find something that I can just like get deeper into it. It's just such a fascinating like mind space for people to be in, to me, and I understand them, but I also am frightened by them. I'm scared by the masses, and like groupthink is just terrifying. And that one is another slow burn that I thought was just super effective. That the end is such a payoff, and then it's also got that little twist that's great. Yeah. And that one actually really kind of fucks with you too throughout. I mean, you don't really know, are they in a cult? Are they going to try and kill all these people at this dinner party? Yeah, they are.
The answer is
that.
yeah.
I love it. And my other one was Creep.
I love Creep. Creep
love
fucked
Creep.
me up.
Creep, I think I got Netflix so that I could watch Creep. Because I had heard about it somewhere. I don't even think I was like, I wasn't even like super much into social media at that point. Definitely not part of the horror community. But I don't know where I had heard it from, but I got Netflix so I could watch Creep. And I watched it alone. And again, that was another movie that I was like, hey, everyone, like my two sisters, our boyfriends, I was like, we're all going to sit down and watch this. And I don't know if it went over too well with them, but they were like, what the fuck is this? What is this? It's so scary.
I watched it alone and I was like, oh, this isn't going to be anything. I watched it home alone and like I was living with my dad at the time and they were on vacation. All the lights in the house on all night.
Yep.
I barely slept. I locked all the doors and windows. It freaked me the fuck out. I was like, nope, I can't sleep tonight. There's going to be a creepy dude in a creepy peach fuzz mask at my door.
It's
like,
so iconic.
It's
I
so
feel like
iconic.
Right?
And like I thought Mark Duplass was just like a lovable like dad bod dork, but Jesus, he's terrifying in that movie.
He's so horrifying, and I suffer from severe empathy for people. And yeah, it's a good thing, and it's also a bad thing. In this case, obviously, it's a bad thing because I just always feel bad. I'm the person that would stay there. Because I don't want that other person to feel bad or feel like I would leave.
Don't tell everyone that, Jessica.
Or...
Someone's going to tell you to come to their house.
I will stay with you forever. I will talk to you forever. It happens to me everywhere. It happens to me, like, even just as personal as my friends who I want to be with. I will be the last one to leave because I always want to stay and talk. And it goes for, like, work and everything else. I don't want anybody to feel bad ever. And especially, I don't want them to feel bad because of something I did, and seeing the repercussions of what that could be is just brutal. I thought it was so real and so just fucked up, and he is so effective. Like, what a performance. It still gets me, and I liked the second one. I obviously can't wait for like the third one to come out, but I mean, Patrick Brice is awesome. Like, what a dude. It was interesting because there was no final girl. There's like two people in this movie, and it's these two guys. One's weird, one's kind of shy. There's like, you would not think that there would be like a whole lot of charisma, but Mark Duplass just punches it.
He really just like brings it so hard.
It's so good. I think that's one of my favorites as well.
He scares the shit out of me in that movie. Like, that movie made me, like, wary of him and anything else. I was like, I know what you're capable of, you fucking weirdo.
Yeah, you're, like, laughing, but it's that scared laugh where you're like, I don't know what to do.
A nervous laugh. Like, ha 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 ha, help.
Yeah, move away from the door frame.
Like that, it's like that meme from The Simpsons, I'm in danger.
I'm in danger.
With a smile on your face.
Yes, exactly.
That would be me. That would be
hot.
me, like, somebody get me out of here. But I'm just gonna
Terry,
stay.
Terry, did you say that was hot?
I said peach fuzz is hot.
Good fucking God.
Well, there is that whole scene there's something like psychosexual
erotic.
about it. Yeah, it is. The way he describes that scene about his wife. Oh,
I feel like that entire
in the
film is
bathtub?
psychosexual.
Oh, definitely.
It is.
It's
Isn't he, like,
it's so incredibly homoerotic, and when he's like standing there in the doorway and he's wearing the mask and he's doing the
rubbing
little
up
hip
on the door
and like doing the hip gyrations, I'm like, ooh, yes, peach fuzz.
Terry's kink, peach fuzz.
Yep, there we go. Oh God,
Well, and
I'm
then-
just gonna cut this entire episode.
He fills him in the bath. It's just very...
Oh.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it being so psychosexual, but it is 100% psychosexual.
Definitely.
for sure.
really is.
It like pushes you as a viewer because and again, it's like that found footage. Like, I don't know if it gets mentioned a whole bunch on like found footage movies, but you're in that position. You're in the bathtub with him.
Yes.
And you're in like you're sitting there and he's telling you the story about what he did to
You're an
his wife.
accomplice. You're a part of it.
Yeah, you're like, get out. but I'm gonna stay. I want to see what happens.
Molly, what was your favorite of 2015?
Okay, this is another one where I had a ton of. Basically, every year I have at least four movies listed.
Good.
I mean, I also had Spring. That was definitely up there for me. Absolutely loved it. I mean, and I had some of the more obvious choices, like It Follows, obviously, is up there, and The Final Girls.
Yes.
But
I love The Final Girls.
I think my number one that I'm gonna go with is Crimson Peak. Yeah, it's
interesting.
And
okay.
So I know not a ton of people like this movie as much as I do, but to me, Guillermo del Toro can do no wrong. I love everything he does, and I like the whole like gothic ghost story kind of feel of it. I love the visuals, and the performances are amazing, and it's just so beautiful. Like it's so pretty to look
beautiful.
at. But this movie also holds a special place in my heart because, despite how late in life it was for me, it was the first film that I went to see in theaters by myself.
Oh,
so
cool.
It's it's kind of special to me because of that. But yeah, and it's just the coloring, especially of that film, is absolutely insane and gorgeous. And Tom Hiddleston, so there's that too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think
The one and only movie where I find him attractive.
Mm-hmm.
it's the only movie where you find him attractive.
Yeah. He's not really my thing, but like that movie, he just oozed
Yeah.
sexuality.
that whole movie
I think
was a
that's
sexuality.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The movie is very
Literally.
sexy. That one thing that disappointed me about that movie is I think I thought it was a vampire movie. And
Oh.
it wasn't a vampire movie. I was so upset. I was like, where are the vampires? There's no vampires.
You could just like think of them sucking the lives out of the women.
Yeah, maybe that's why
That's
everything
true.
is red. You know, could just be blood.
True. I think that's why. I think they just assumed. I don't know why I assumed it was a vampire movie, but poor me was just like, this isn't what I want.
I mean, it definitely has the look
it
of
is
like a
beautiful.
Dracula type film.
Yeah,
So I could see that.
for real. Yeah,
But yeah, that was
Cool.
that was another really good year for a lot of films. It was,
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
so many.
It's a turning point for
and
me.
honestly, I'm probably going to
Yeah,
change my mind
2015
about
and
all my
2016.
decisions by the time we're done here. So
yeah. 2016 was when it got really hard for me.
Yes.
I'm just like looking at my list and I don't even know what to say, but oh god. So okay, I'm gonna commit. My favorite of 2016 is Shin Godzilla
oh,
because I love Godzilla. I am a Godzilla freak. Everyone knows this probably. I love that big, thick monster boy. Yes, I said it. And so the thing with Godzilla is that he's really silly. Like, he is considered a pretty silly character. I mean, the original one from the 50s is pretty fucked up about nuclear war. And then from there, it kind of becomes this silly monster movie. But Shin Godzilla, which was directed by Hideki Anno, who did Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is like one of the best anime series of all time, he
It's so
took
good.
a break from his horrible existential teenager mech series to make this new terrifying Godzilla movie where Godzilla is absolutely the bad guy. There isn't like, because the American versions that we've had have Godzilla as the good guy, which is fine. But in Shin Godzilla, like, it is straight up a horror movie. Like, he has 3 creepy forms, and he is just an all-out destructive force. And it is not just about that, but also about the horrors of Japanese bureaucracy and how how the inability for people to make decisions in the government leads to the death of thousands. And it is just such a beautiful marriage of monster movie and political drama. And I love the soundtrack. I still listen to the soundtrack. And it is a movie that I have watched so many times. And again, this is a movie that my boyfriend and I have really bonded over because he got me into Godzilla movies. And we saw it. It had a very limited run in theaters. And we actually got to see it in theaters, which was an amazing experience. And yeah, it's just a movie I watch at least twice a year. And it's just stunning. It's a really prime example of how to do a good monster movie. So that's my favorite
That's awesome.
of 2016. But I also have The Witch on there, obviously, because how could I not have The Witch on there?
Yeah.
Thomason is that very bitch. And then I also had The Wailing, which is a Korean possession movie.
So good.
That absolutely love The Wailing.
It's so good.
And this is like a year where I really started, not the first year, but like this is when I really started digging into international horror, especially Korean and Japanese horror. So there's going to be a lot more of that. Actually, no, there isn't. But but those like that was the year I really started paying attention to horror that wasn't just from the U.S. So that was a big year for me.
That's awesome.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that gave me anxiety just to pick.
Right?
Terry, what was your favorite of 2016?
So this year should have been hard for me because there were a lot of great movies that came out. But when I think back on this year, the movie that sticks with me the most is The Eyes of My Mother.
Oh, cool. I actually am watching that this week for something. An assignment.
Have you seen it before?
No, I haven't.
Oh God, it is so fucking disturbing.
I can't wait.
And like all of the violence is implied. You always see like the aftermath of it.
Oh, interesting.
But like,
okay.
But there is some images in it, and it's filmed in stark black and white, and it's just. I have every time for the longest time after I watched this movie, every time I closed my eyes, I could see some of the images in it.
Oh.
It really affected me, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I think it's a fantastic, debut for Nicholas Pesci. I think that's how you say his last name.
Yes.
Who did Piercing this year, which almost made it on my top of the year list, and then he has The Grudge coming out next.
Grudge.
But like The Eyes of My Mother, it's I don't want to talk too much about it since you haven't seen it. You're going to watch it this week, but it is fucked up. It is disturbing, and it got under my skin. And so that's why it was my favorite of the year in a year that had movies like The Witch.
Yeah. And there's a really good interview with him, I think, on Shockwaves about his pretty short career, but like really impressive career.
It's incredibly impressive.
I interviewed
really
him.
Cool
maybe last year.
Did you really?
Yeah, around this time last year for Piercing. And man, what a guy.
Is he cool?
Oh my God, he's so cool.
Hell
He's
yeah.
so cool. Like,
he seems like he'd be cool.
He's one of us. I know that sounds weird, like, and I would like to think that all of these filmmakers really are, but when I get to talk to people, he is one of us. He draws inspiration out like a motherfucker. Piercing I was looking forward to that because I am a huge fan of Murakami, so I was looking forward to that, and I think I will be a little bit of a snoot when it comes to like book adaptations, but I'm one of those people. I am.
I am too. Don't worry.
I feel bad doing that, but he did that book justice on the screen.
Wait, Piercing is a Murakami adaptation?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
what?
It's incredible. Mary Beth, read
I didn't
it.
know that.
Excuse me. So good. It's so
oh
good.
Boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm excited to see it, but now I'm really excited to see it.
You haven't seen Piercing either?
No.
I haven't either.
Oh God, it's so good.
I'm a piece of
my
shit.
God.
I know.
It's so good. No, I think it's awesome that you're going to be able to watch it now, especially since you know what it's based on. It's good. It's really good.
I know, and I also just like that. I don't know. It looks sexy in like a fucked up way.
That's exactly what it
is. that's pretty much it to a T.
Hell yeah. Molly, how about you?
God, I feel like I'm gonna make that noise every time it's my turn to get to a year. Obviously, I also had The Witch. Train to Busan was up there for me.
Yes, I forgot to mention Train to Busan, but good lord, what a good movie!
I almost picked Hell House LLC just because that movie scares the ever loving shit out of me, no matter how many times I've seen it now. But I'm gonna go with Green Room. Green Room's my number one.
Oh hell yeah! Okay,
that was a runner.
That's a good choice.
I mean, that movie. That was the first film that I went to like a press screening for it. So it was cool. I live in the middle of buttfuck nowhere now, so I don't have that option. But then it was amazing, and it's So that, in that regard, it has a special place for me. But also, like, Anton Yelchin is,
Cool.
like, I miss him so much.
Rip.
He's so
He's so
amazing
good.
in that movie. His performance is great. I mean, he's great in every movie he does. But it's, like, the fact that we don't get to see his career continue makes me sad. And especially, I feel like this was, like, the height of his career of what we had seen from him up to this until he passed. So, but this movie surprised me. Like, I was expecting to go in and, like, root for some, like, to see some Nazis get their ass kicked and killed and stuff, some neo-Nazis. But it was so much more than that. And I love how punk rock it is. And it's surprisingly gory and violent. Like, it sneaks up on you, violent. Especially that first scene when, like, they grab his arm through the door. And you don't see what's happening, but then he pulls it back through, and it's just cut to shit, and it's so realistic looking. Yeah. That part, as soon as that happened, I was like, yep, this movie's amazing. I absolutely love it.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. 2017. This is another really hard one for me because, like, Get Out came that year. And a bunch of movies that came out in 2015 but actually had distribution came out this year. And so my list for 2017 got real stacked real quick. But I think I'm going to have to pick Raw for my 2017 pick. My coming-of-age cannibalism French movie because it's just, again, sexy and weird and about feminine rage and kind of this what it can physically embody itself as. And it really opened my eyes to how gross women directors can be, and then I mean that in a very good way. And I think this got me really into. I really liked the French no extremity genre in college, and this one got me like even more deeply invested in that, especially women who direct films within that subgenre, like films like In My Skin, which is about auto cannibalism and stuff like that. So Raw just had like a very deep impact on me as like a film critic, and an academic. So absolutely love that. But I Get Out was like a huge like milestone, I think, for the horror community and just like horror in general that year. Black Coat's Daughter came out that year, which I absolutely love. Another slow burn, but like what a fucking awesome possession movie. And then The Devil's Candy came out that year too, which is like so good, and he's so hot.
So hot in that movie.
So hot in that movie.
Hot dad.
But it's just such. I didn't watch that. It was on Netflix for a while, and I was like, this doesn't look that good. And then I finally was like, no, I need to just watch it. And I can't believe I slept on it for so long. That movie is just so fucking good, and like the music is amazing, and it's just this amazing marriage of punk rock and demons and grotesque stuff that I just really can get behind. And he directed The Loved Ones, didn't he?
He did. Sean Burns.
He did.
He's just really good at making these really effective, fucked up movies that like you love, but you kind of hate at the same time for being so disturbing.
That one was my top two. The Devil's Candy was right there with Get Out. Get Out, I think, earns extra points because of what it did. It was such a turning point. But The Devil's Candy was like my personal one because me and my dad are huge metalheads, and so everybody's always looking at us like, what the fuck do you listen to? And we go to concerts together, just me and him still now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He's my buddy. So it was a different dynamic to see between a father and a daughter in a movie, and I was and this is like something like me and him have, and I love my dad to death, and it was just, I thought that was really cool, and it's so metal and so fun metal. And the color and Ethan Embry, that movie made me start my hot dads list for Nightmare on Film Street. I think that was when I started Nightmare on Film Street writing for them in 2018. And so I think that movie was just still lingering on me. And I think that was like one of the first few lists that I did that year for Father's Day. I was like,
amazing.
Hey guys, amazing. I'm going to shake it up here.
Well, and when you think about how Ethan Embry in the 90s was like this like stoner character, right?
Like little
just
dork.
this kind of a goober dork, and then you see him in that movie, and it's like,
Yep.
God damn. God damn.
Now we sound like the guys
pretty
from like
sure-
King of the Hill, like, mm-hmm.
It's true.
I'm not going to say it plays into my movie choices, but it's on the rubric. It doesn't hurt. The opposite of that, I'm pretty sure it came out in 2017. Mainstream was Better Watch Out. I don't know what I don't know what it was about that. That was also something that completely took me off guard. That I wasn't expecting what it was.
Gay director.
It's amazing.
I love him.
Terry, what was your favorite of 2017?
So this was a hard year for me to choose, and I went with a movie that just gave me so much anxiety. It was such a very anxious watch for me, and I haven't watched it since. And I part of me really wants to go back and watch it. Part of me just wants to let that experience just sit the way it was. Have you guys ever had a movie like that where it's like you just yeah
Quite a
so
few.
it was it was Mother.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
I fucking hate that movie. But
That movie is like-
for similar. So I just want to hear what you like. Why you like it so much? Because that might be why I hate it.
It's an introvert's worst nightmare.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this character, and it's before you start to like realize just how insane the story is going to get. And she is in this house, and people just keep coming, and she can't get to by herself. And they just keep coming, and they keep sitting on her fucking sink, and she keeps telling them, please get off the sink, don't do that. And they keep doing it, and no one listens to her. And it is so I'm getting anxious right now just talking about it. It is such an anxiety driven movie that I don't know if I ever want to experience it again, but at the same time, it is what a masterfully made movie. The ending where it's basically one long take as the house goes through different decades. It's just, I'm like, how is this movie made? Is this even a movie? How? And it just blew me away. And I think the themes, I think you can look at it from many different ways of like it being a critique on organized religion, or being a critique on like the kind of God complex that creators have, or the kind of like climate change. Like there's so many ways you can like take the story, and I've seen so many people write different articles about it. I think coming from different directions, I just it's a movie that I think is a masterpiece that I never probably want to see again.
I feel the exact same way. Like it's beautiful. It's so well done. It literally is my worst nightmare. I was borderline having a panic attack the whole time I was watching it.
I actually had a panic attack when I saw that movie.
Yeah, it's horrible, but in the best way. And I like, obviously it's effective filmmaking because it elicited that reaction, but I never want to watch it again. Ever.
Right.
I do not need to experience it again.
Like whenever
it just like I'm like all tense just thinking about about it, because like just oh god. So like I mean, you know, it was hard to choose this one, because I mean obviously Get Out is such a important and influential film that has like kind of changed the way we look at movies and the diversity in movies since then. I think that's fantastic. I think it's a great movie. It probably is one of the best of the year, but for me, this movie just I couldn't not talk about it because anxiety.
Yeah, that movie made me so uncomfortable.
In the best way for me. Like if a movie can elicit that feeling, it's good.
Cool. Molly, what was your favorite of the year?
This one, for some reason, this year was a little bit easier for me. And it's funny because since I've been writing film reviews, I've done like my best of the year lists. And I went back and looked at this year, and my number one for this year when I wrote it was Shape of Water, which I still absolutely love. But I haven't had that desire, like that need to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
Which obviously that's not a criteria if I never want to see Mother again. But I was really torn between two. Raw was one of them. I absolutely love Raw.
Nice,
It's fantastic. It's beautifully made. The performances are amazing. I love the like weird dynamic between the sisters in that. I'm weirdly drawn to movies with like messed up sister relationships, and I don't know why. I mean, I assume it's because I have an older sister, but she's 9 years older than me, so it's kind of like having two only children.
Oh, interesting.
So I almost wonder if that's why, because like my sister and I didn't get close until I was in my 20s, really.
Okay.
But the other film that is probably, I'm going to say it's tied with Raw, even though they're two very different films, is Tragedy Girls. I love Tragedy Girls. I love the like satirical kind of take that they did like on social media and young people, like the lengths that they'll go, and like that these kids are basically sociopaths in their quest for fame.
Right.
But I also love the dynamic between the two girls, like that it's one of those films. I mean, it kind of almost reminds me of like the Disney movie Frozen, where it shows that like your sisterhood or your friendship is more important than anything else, which is kind of a weird film to connect it to.
Interesting. I like it.
But I love the dynamic between the two of them, and it's such a fun, ridiculous movie. Like I have a like one sheet poster of that one. It's so good. It's one of those movies that it's fun. It's so different from Raw, but both of them, the main reason I love them is because the dynamics between the two female leads.
Yeah. Of the movies of that year, that's the one that I gravitate to, and I will watch it all the time. And I definitely, like, I wrote an article this year about how I considered the queer subtext of it, because I think they're in love, and I think it's a refutation. It refutes the idea of heteronormativity by the end of it in a very murderous way. But but yeah, it's probably the most fun movie of that year, and the one that I go back to. So I'm glad you included it. I completely forgot that it came out that year.
I'm sure I thought it came out a different year at first until I went back and checked.
Wow. Last few years have kind of been a blur, really, right? That's a good one.
Okay. We're getting close to the end, guys.
We are almost there.
2018. I mean, this was both a very easy year and a very difficult year, because some of the movies that I have written the most about came out this year, and movies that I really latched onto came out this year. And the two that I really had a hard time and didn't have a hard time choosing between were Hereditary and Revenge. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, Revenge is my number one of that year. It has, as you guys have seen over and over again on social media, it has shaped my research interests. I wrote my master's thesis on this movie. It has shaped like what I write about a lot. It has shaped me wanting to write books about female directed rape revenge movies. It has like shaped my life in a very fascinating way. And it is such an influential movie for me and such an impactful movie for me. Followed closely by Hereditary. Thank you, Ari Aster, for ruining my entire life with this film. But yeah, I mean, last year was one of the first years I really was starting to pay attention to indie films as they were released rather than going back. Mm-hmm. Last year was, I think, the first year that I really started writing. Like, this year and last year were like my big years as a freelancer and really starting to freelance. So there was a lot of movies I saw and got to review for the first time, and I just also wanted to mention Mandy, because fucking Mandy is like the best, like the most visually beautiful, one of the most visually stunning movies I've ever seen. But yeah, Revenge is my number one of 2018.
Mm-hmm. What a great choice.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Good one.
I stand by it.
I love that movie.
Terry, what about you?
As you should. So 2018 is kind of a big year for me, because that's when I started my site. That's when I started to like seriously write about movies. And I think there's so many really good movies. Like I was looking back at my top 10 and I'm like, okay, there's Anna and the Apocalypse came out, Hereditary, Revenge, Pyewacket, What Keeps You Alive, Cam. Like there's just so many fantastic movies that came out last year. Suspiria. And like it also got me thinking about how this list, when we look back on it in a few years, will probably be different, because my number one, if you go back to my website, my number one that I chose last year was Suspiria. And it's not my favorite now. My favorite, because the movie that I have not been able to stop thinking about since I first saw it, is Hereditary.
Okay.
I love this movie so much. I think it's a movie that, unlike Suspiria, it's a movie that I can go back to and rewatch over and over again, but I can also pick up so many different things every single time I watch it, and it's one of the movies that, like, my opinion of what's going on in it changes. It's one that, like, I think you can have a conversation about from two different people, and two different people read it a completely different way. It's my kind of shit. It's the kind of movie that I like to watch, where it's all about what's going on behind the scene as well as what's going on in front of it. And I think it's just brilliant.
Yes.
It's such a punch right to the face. It was my number one as well, and I think it's my number one of the decade, like, standing tall. It's you know how everybody goes back to, maybe not Terry, but like everybody says like The Exorcist is like the scariest movie. I think this will be something that I'm gonna like have to save for my children when I want to completely torment them, and when I'm like, you're ready, because that's what my parents did for me with The Exorcist. Like, my mom can't watch scary movies, but for some reason she can watch The Exorcist and Halloween, like the original. And so,
well, doesn't your mom watch scary movies from the kitchen?
Oh my gosh, with her eyes closed. That was the Halloween 2018 that she had
the pictures you posted on Twitter was so fucking funny of your mom.
Oh my god, she plugs her ears and closes her eyes, and just, she can't take her eyes off the screen, but then she's also at the same time like, I don't want to watch this. Get this off. Take this off. I don't want to watch it. But she really took a liking to it. She wanted to watch it again. I don't know if it was like the Halloween spirit this year, but she wanted to see it. She actually came to the theater to go see that with us. She never does that. But she loves her Halloween, so I think that's where I get it from. But Hereditary, I'm very close with my parents. My whole family's very close. And my mother's mom, you know, she lived close here with us, and they fight like mother and daughter do. You know, one day they're pissed off at one another, the next day they're fine. They got into it one day, and then 2 weeks later, my poor grandmother died, and they didn't talk. And
oh my god,
it was awful. And that was a month before Hereditary came out. So we went to go see it in the theater. Not only was I like struggling after that, like that first 30 minutes, that I was like, holy shit. This you knew it was a game changer going into it. You knew what everybody was saying about it, but I was like, oh, holy shit. And then right after that, you don't have any time to recover, because it just is relentless. And that scene of Toni Collette just screaming and crying on the floor hurt. It was like, I'm terrified, but I'm also so upset by this, and this is so relatable, because like you said, Mary Beth, like grief, it's something we all experience. Hopefully you don't have to experience it like that, but like that's so real. It's so human and so relatable, and it's something that kind of comes for us somewhere along the line. And so I thought that I was like, dang, I left that movie like terrified and crying. And my poor sister, she was 23 when that came out, when we went to go see it, and she was living across the room from me at this time, and it was 2 weeks after we went to go see the movie, and in the middle of the night she was screaming. And we're not like people that have nightmares or anything. I've never had a nightmare from a movie, neither have they, but she was screaming in the middle of the night, and she said, I was afraid of Toni Collette.
Well, and to go back on your comment about grief, that is the most, you don't see that kind of grief in movies. You don't see that sort of naked sadness that that in film at all. And the fact that he trusted her to be able to do that and pull it off in a way that didn't come across as silly. Because sometimes, you know, when people cry, there's like that kind of line between it being funny and it being sad. And she just owns that grief in such a powerful way. And I think the scene that scared me the most out of that movie was, and I've talked about this multiple times, but when she tells the kid, and yeah, it's a dream, but she tells the kid she didn't want to have him.
Yeah,
Oh,
my God, that was the...
Like, that scene, above anything else, like, it took the air out of me. It felt like I got punched in the stomach. And, yeah, oof, that movie.
I think that what makes that movie so brilliant is that it's beautiful, but it is so fucking ugly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It like,
that's a way to describe
like
it.
the crying, like you said, like we've seen grief in movies, especially with the movies that we watch, but that movie is the ugly grief. It's not. It's not
all consuming.
It's not even like, you know, the Kim Kardashian ugly cry. It's that nasty, hurtful, upset, like on the floor, like no control over yourself, and that's what makes it scary, because then it doesn't stop. It's punching you in the face with both of those, of the worst emotions you can feel, and it's just ugh. And then there's the resentment with her saying that. It's so much. We need a palate cleanser. Talk about like Overlord.
Molly, what are you? Help us.
Turn this plane around.
I have a 4-way tie.
Good.
Fuck. I mean, obviously, Hereditary and Revenge are two of those top ones, and then Suspiria, and my fourth one is actually Annihilation.
Hell yes, Annihilation.
I like all four of those films are ones that I've rewatched more than once since I saw them in theaters already. And I love the music for all of them. They're all visually amazing. The performances in all of them are fantastic. And all of them, maybe with the exception of Revenge, just because its vibe is a little different than the other ones, but like all of them left me, I don't even know how to describe the emotion, like with a pit in my stomach almost afterwards.
I was gonna say they left me feeling empty.
Yeah. Like Annihilation, Suspiria, Hereditary all left me with that. Revenge, I was more like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, that one's a little bit more like you said, like kind of empowering. Yeah. But they make you they have this nihilism to them. These like they don't really resolve. They just kind of leave you hanging on these just like really kind of dark notes where you just feel like you said a pit, like a dark pit in your stomach.
Yeah, and it lingers for a long time too. Like even thinking about it, I can feel that feeling again. And like with her,
me too, in my stomach.
I feel like for some reason, especially, there's something about Annihilation that really left me feeling that way more so than the others. Like even in the times I've rewatched it, I'm just like, holy shit, that's just like, and I hate people, but I'm also thinking, do I want everyone to be gone and have us all end up like people in that film did? I don't know if I want that.
Yeah. Have you read the books?
Yes, I fucking love the books.
Oh, the book, they're so beautiful. They're really, the trilogy is really good, and I think Alex Garland did a really good job of making the movie into like taking the source material and making it something different. Just because I think that the book is so utterly complicated.
Yes.
But it is beautiful.
And I got the same feeling reading the book that I did watching the movie.
Yes.
Even though like it goes in a different direction, it's definitely like I still was left with that emptiness afterwards.
It's just so full of dread.
But it's a good emptiness, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, I'm glad I felt that way. Which sounds really bizarre to say, but, like, I was okay with it.
In my life, I don't want to feel that way, but getting that feeling from a work of art is fine.
I just watched it for the first time maybe, like, 2 months ago, and I've been wondering what that fucking feeling of dread was. And now I feel like I know what it is. It's still on me, and now I want to read it. So
you should check out the trilogy. It's really good.
They're awesome.
And like the trilogy in general has that sense of just like almost ennui, like just to use a fancy word.
Sounded
like
great.
this very nihilistic approach to the world that you like. You want to keep experiencing it, but you're also like, what is going to happen? Like, what is coming around the corner? It's very like Lovecraftian in a way. I would equate it to like a much better version of like Lovecraft. Not the racism.
Well, and I feel like what makes it so effective too is that, as humans, we feel so secure with our position. And I feel like both the books and the film Annihilation are like, you have no idea what your position in the world is, and you could be wiped out at any moment. And it's that really
and
fucks
it's like
with
a creep. Yes, it does, and it's just like this very sudden but also creeping like annihilation.
Yeah,
it's when she says annihilation in the movie, I was like, she said the title of the movie, like kind of loud in the movie theater, and I was one of those people. I just thought it was very funny.
I love when they do that in movies. It's hilarious.
It's the best. Cool. Okay, guys, we're at 2019.
Whew.
We're at the end.
We're at the end. This is the end. We did it.
We did it.
So for listeners who have been anticipating Terry and our top picks of 2019, here they come. Jess and Molly, Terry and I did our top horror of 2019, and we're revealing our number one on this episode.
Okay.
So my number one of 2019 is Daniel Isn't Real.
Yay.
Yay.
Which I know. It was a movie that kind of snuck in for me at the end of the year. I hadn't caught it at any festivals, and so I was lucky enough to watch it like end of November. And it blew me the fuck away. Like, I knew I was going to love it. It was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and it just absolutely blew my expectations out of the water. It was such a fascinating examination of mental illness, and I mentioned this in a previous episode about when his mom says it's like lightning going off in your brain. It's how it feels like when I have a manic episode, like a lightning strike in my brain. And it just handles mental illness in this really interesting way that is both like horrifying and complex and careful. And the soundtrack is absolutely fuckable. And I can't stop listening to it at work. And it's just a movie I have not been able to get out of my head. And it's just my favorite of the year. And it kind of knocked my list apart a little bit in a good way. It kind of disrupted what I was expecting were going to be my favorites of the year. So that is number one of 2019.
It's so good.
Terry, what about you?
It's so good. So I think people that listen to last episode could probably figure out what mine is, because I didn't talk about it last episode, even though we talked about it because it was on your list. But it's Knife Plus Heart. I loved this movie because it could have easily have been like a pastiche of giallo films, but it actually felt like a lost film that could have been released at the time. It deals with the LGBTQ community at a time in the summer of 1979 when the AIDS epidemic was looming in the future, and I found it a very powerful metaphor for what must have been going on in gay sex workers' lives at the time, where having anonymous sex with someone could potentially spell your doom, and not knowing that it was going to kill you, because this is before AIDS became known as what it was. And so you have this unknown and faceless killer who seems intent on killing gay sex workers with the switchblade phallus. You have the cops that don't want to do anything because they're just all a bunch of faggots anyway. You have like all of this stuff going on, and by the end of the movie, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but at the very end of the movie, it kind of gives the power back to these to the gay men that have been targeted, and allows them to get revenge that they couldn't get in life. And so I found it to be a very powerful movie, a very moving movie. It's beautifully shot. The soundtrack is fantastic. And it's my favorite movie that I saw this year, hands down.
It's amazing.
It's
just so gay. It's so beautiful. It's just perfect.
Shit, I'm the only one that hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Oh,
It's on
good.
Shudder.
I know. I keep
on
meaning to
Shudder.
watch it. There are just too many movies to watch.
I know. It's true. This was one I've been waiting to see too. So many people had seen it at like Cannes and at the cool European festivals, and I was like, I want to see it though, please.
I aggressively tracked this one down earlier in the year. This was like the first time that I actively went out of the way to track down the film studio that did it, getting in touch with whoever made it, because I had to see this film.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you loved it so much. It really is
yeah, me
such a
too.
like beautifully made movie.
It really is.
very modern noir.
Yeah. Jessica, what was your favorite of the year of 2019?
So you know how I said I was a severe book adaptation snob before? My favorite of the year, and I'm a huge Stephen King fan, it was Dr. Sleep.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It really was. I loved Midsummer. I really did. I loved The Lighthouse. I've actively saw everything that I could in the theater this year and everything that I can. And I've been unemployed for about 4 months, so I just crammed shit in, because you would think that you wouldn't want to work. But let me tell you something. After a while,
it's
Daniel
true.
is real.
You just can't not do anything. You're like, I need to do something.
I needed to do something. It was the most I wrote too. I kept saying to John and Kim, I was like, give me something. I will do this. But interviewed people. It was good. But I've seen a lot this year, and the reason that I put Dr. Sleep up at the top is because I truly, to my core, did not think I was going to like it. I knew I wasn't going to like it. I like Mike Flanagan. I think he did a beautiful job with the Haunting at Hill House, especially with all the ghosts that were in the shots. There's like 100 or something ghosts. I was like, oh, that's fucking brilliant. I didn't see that. I had to go and look at them. I thought that was great. Midsummer literally gave me homework, and I love it and hate that at the same time. I like to go home and search and see what I was missing or what I didn't know about before I watched a movie. But when it came to Dr. Sleep, and I'm really critical of all of Stephen King's adaptations, I love them and then I hate them at the same time. And this one, what Mike Flanagan did with bringing The Shining back into like a modern audience's screen was unbelievable. The Shining is obviously one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite movies. Yeah. It's one of my favorite books. It's one of those untouchable, like, you can't like remake Jaws ever. You can make all the sequels you want, but you just can't do that. And so thinking that he was going to be bringing back such, untouchable, iconic pieces of horror, it was flawless. I thought it was great. It worked well. He paid attention to the stuff that Stephen King wanted, and he also had Kubrick, and it was almost like he was like a peacemaker between these two opposite worlds, and he brought them together so beautifully. It was, between like the aging and all of that. When I first saw that trailer and they had a couple of the shots from The Shining mixed in with all of that new all the new scenes, I was like, okay, this might work, but let's see it play out. And I thought it was great. I really think that he caught more slack than he deserved. I think that we should have looked at that. Everybody should look at it and go see movies in the theater and see what they're about, and do your homework. It's fun to. I like to nitpick movies just as much as anybody. I'm horrible 5 minutes after a movie. I need to sit for a second, but it was what he did. I think was like a huge challenge that he took on, and he faced it, and I think he gave it his all. And I thought it was a great way to marry the book and the movie.
Cool.
Who knew when he did Gerald's Game that wouldn't be the hardest adaptation, right?
So many of Stephen King's books are, I don't even know how, the ones that are out now that are adaptations are, some of those, when you read them, are like, I don't even know how they did that. And Gerald's Game is definitely one of those, but now when you see it on Netflix and stuff, you wouldn't even ever think that would have been hard to adapt.
Yeah.
Right. But then you look at this movie, that not only did he have to deal with the fact that the movie The Shining is more common knowledge and more like what's the word I'm looking for? Canon, I guess, than the book is, because more people have seen it than have read the book. And it's iconic. And the fact that he could take that, a movie that Stephen King hates, and somehow bridge it with the book is, I think that's amazing.
Right,
so
and
I can see definitely, and do it well. Because I'll tell you what, I did not like that. Dr. Sleep was one of the books I do not like.
Dr. Sleep was one of those books that, only because I think that, like, since The Shining is what The Shining is, I never thought that anybody would ever even touch it. Do you know what I mean? Like, or not anytime soon. And I can't remember what year Dr. Sleep came out. It was a couple of years ago. And you don't think that anybody would do that, touch it, adapt it, but he did. And it was a movie in the cinemas too. I feel bad it didn't get like a huge opening box office. I think that's what it didn't get, like, the reception that it needed to have, but I'm kind of hoping it catches on for more people, and especially people who love Stephen King and love Stanley Kubrick. I think it got a lot of flack, and I loved it, so I put it at the top of my list.
Cool. I haven't seen it
right.
yet, so I need to see it. I didn't like the book so much, but I've heard mixed things about the movie, but overall relatively positive. So I'll definitely check it out when I can watch it.
And it does deviate from the book in the ending. Like, cool. It does not stick with the book. And again, that's something that I'm just like pushing my glasses up, like, you know, like, well, actually, in the book, this person and this person and this happens, and it does not stick with the book, but in a good way. In a really good way. Forgive me, Stephen King.
I read the source material for either book, but I Dr. Sleep was in my top for this year. It's like, again, even though I haven't read the source material, I've obviously seen The Shining, and I feel like he did do such a good job of, like, combining the two inspiration while still kind of making it his own. And just the casting in that film alone is so good. Like, the casting of Wendy and oh my God, and the performances are fantastic. And I'm going to say something that's going to probably make a lot of horror people hate me. I think I like Dr. Sleep better than The Shining.
Whoa.
Yeah. I know, bold statement.
That's a hot take.
Just because, for me, I love the original Shining. Like, I've seen it so many times. It's fantastic. But I think what Dr. Sleep has that is kind of missing from The Shining is like the heart of the film, if that makes sense. Like, I don't feel particularly connected to any of the characters in The Shining the way I do in Dr. Sleep.
Oh, interesting.
That's where the source material, like, comes in. That's what it was missing. I think that's why Stephen King did not love it as much, because he puts hearts and souls into his characters, and that's kind of what's missing in the Shining adaptation.
And it's like, it's very, I mean, obviously they're in a cold landscape, but, like, emotionally it's cold, and, like, it's totally different in Dr. Sleep. And I love that they build on the mythology a lot more in that as well. So I know I'm probably gonna get so much shit for that, but I don't care.
So you justified it.
Yeah, you did. So what is your top of this year then, Molly?
I have another 3-way tie. I mean, granted, who knows? By the time this comes out, because I'm going to be putting out a top 10 of the year list on my website, I may have made a decision by then. But as of right now, it's a 3-way tie between Doctor Sleep, Daniel Isn't Real, and Midsummer. And since
that's a pretty intense 3-way tie.
And since we've talked about Daniel Isn't Real and Doctor Sleep, I'll focus a little more on Midsummer.
Okay.
I mean, I love pastoral horror. Like, I like Wicker Man and stuff. I'm all about that shit. Obviously the original, not the Nick Cage one, even though I do kind of secretly like that one too.
Not the bass.
But it's that one resonated with me a little bit more than Hereditary did, even though I love Hereditary, just because I've never had like a loss like Danny did, but I've been in a very similar relationship that she was in with Christian.
Okay.
So like it was watching that was a very cathartic experience for me because I was like, yes, this is it's the person I was with before my husband. Like it's almost exactly the same. Yes. Like the being very manipulative, like probably not really wanting to be with me, but because I was almost like his security blanket, like manipulating me to be in the relationship and making me feel like I was in the wrong anytime I was upset about something. And most likely, even though I don't necessarily have proof, most likely cheating on me during our entire relationship as well.
Oh my God, Molly, I'm so sorry.
Watching that, I was like, yes, fuck yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, that happened to me too. Uh-huh, yeah. So then just how I mean, I'm sure most people know how it ends by now, but I won't get too into it. But like the way that film ends, it was just like a release for me. And it was, the way that ends with just a smile on her face, I was like, I feel you. I know exactly how you feel in this moment. And you know what? If I was in your place, I probably would have done the same thing.
Oh, hell yeah.
Have you seen the director's cut? No. So one thing that I think, I don't think I can watch the original cut again since seeing the director's cut. I think that there are some issues with the director's cut. Like I think that there's a couple scenes that they probably still could have trimmed. But one of the most interesting things, and the reason why I bring it up, is that one of the complaints I heard about this film was that Christian was raped, right? Is what a lot of people are saying. And
he was what?
He's raped by the girl in the.
Oh, okay.
Maya, was that her name?
Sex scene at the end. Yeah, I think so. But in the director's cut, he actually agrees to do it.
Yeah. There
is a scene where, like, when he's talking with the lady, and it kind of cuts afterward to the scene afterwards. In the director's cut, he agrees to this, and I think it really kind of changes the whole feeling of the movie and what happens at the end. And I think it makes it even more cathartic than it already was.
They probably should have kept that in there.
Well, and it's interesting
because like
now that you say that, I can see how people like saw it that way. But when I was watching it, I personally didn't even realize that. Most likely because I've heard the argument that like Danny was just manipulated by the cult, which I think is a load of bullshit.
Right, I've heard that too.
Because I feel like every single person there got to where they were because of the choices they made, and they were free to make those choices. Like everyone who was killed killed because of the choices they made.
Yep.
And
that's what the director's
exactly.
cut.
Because are they saying? I don't know. Were they saying it because he drank the liquid, and so that he was like well, but he was kind of putting the moves on her before that, and he knew that there was something in that liquid, didn't he? Doesn't he know it was like a hallucinogen?
Yes.
I think like it's implied. Like I think there's a lot of implication behind it. Like I never saw it as him being raped, because I saw like the implication behind what was happening. But like a lot of people online, anytime you would talk about it, I kept getting these like rando people tweeting, "Well, he was raped. He was raped." And I'm like, okay, watch the director's cut, because he definitely agreed to do this. Like 100%, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
There's consent.
And even I almost feel like the scene when he takes the drink in the theatrical could, like, if you think about it, because he had already been approached by the female leader and like said, "Oh, you're good for breeding for this woman," and
right.
They've had the drink multiple times before, so I'm sure he knew what was in it. So in that moment when he's like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't," but then he takes it, to me that was him making like a nonverbal, like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do this. We're gonna go down this path."
Yeah. And in the director's cut, what she says is like, she kind of sets it up like, you wanted to learn about our culture. This is the ultimate way of learning about it. Here's the ritual. You're gonna take this drink and you're gonna have this mass orgy. Is basically what they say. Like,
it was there.
Yeah.
God, I hate Christian.
But yeah. All right. Well, this has been a long but fun episode.
Yeah, for real. We got through it. We did it.
We did.
The challenge.
There's a lot of good shit this decade.
The tens.
So much
good shit this decade.
I want to go again and then do like the third and fourth runners up.
This is the podcast that never ends. We're never letting anyone leave.
I'm excited for next year and whatever weird shit it'll bring us. I think there's going to be some cool stuff out there, so I'm excited to see what is on the docket for 2020.
What are you the most excited?
I can't even think right now.
I have a list.
I really want to see The Lodge.
The
what?
Lodge?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It got pushed back to February, which is annoying, but like I've been waiting for that one forever, and I just can't wait to see it. And I haven't been able to catch it at any festivals, and they're not giving screeners out that I've seen. So that's one of the ones I'm really hyped for. What about you guys? What are you most excited for next year?
I'm excited to see what Candyman is like.
Yes. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Looking forward to it. I can't wait to see what that's like.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
And The Invisible Man.
Yes.
I was going to say
almost
Invisible
like
Man.
We're getting into like a new age of remakes. And The Grudge is coming, and the new Ghostbusters, but I think this is going to be a new decade of remakes.
For
you know what I
sure.
mean.
Yeah, I think I agree.
There are already so many, like The Witches.
Hopefully.
I'm tentatively excited about. Because, like, that's a childhood favorite. I'm also...
That's a good one.
That is a scary movie.
Yeah. I'm super excited. Like, the first movie, not the first movie, because I think Invisible Man comes out, like, on the 3rd or something of January? Something like that.
Oh, does it really?
I didn't realize it came out that soon.
It's coming up really quick. But Underwater, I'm really excited for. I love aquatic horror.
Yeah.
And that comes out the day before my birthday, so I know what I'm doing that weekend.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to see it that weekend too because my
I'm
birthday's
11th.
the 14th. Yeah.
And like Antlers looks amazing.
Oh my god, I cannot fucking wait for Antlers.
And
I can't wait.
Promising Young Woman. Oh my god, I cannot wait
That is
for
like-
that.
That is a movie
What is this?
100% made for my interest. It's like a rape revenge movie. It is like, it's got Mary Beth McAndrews written all over it. I cannot wait. It looks so good.
It's gonna be awesome.
I'm going to quote that from now on. What did you say? It's made for the very best of my interest.
Yes.
I love it.
Terry, what are you most excited for next year?
I mean, I'm excited for people to see some of the festival hits that came out this year. And I'm excited for people to see Synchronic next year.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of Benson and Moorhead. I'm everything you guys have mentioned is like is getting me really pumped. I really can't wait to see what they do with Candyman. I'm really excited to see Underwater. I think The Grudge is going to be interesting. I'm hoping that we are going into another decade like the 80s where there's a lot of really good remakes that kind of assess the originals in different and unique ways. So yeah, I'm hopeful, and I want more queer. I hope there's more queer horror.
Yeah.
I want more. I need it in my veins.
I'm excited to see what Halloween Kills is like.
Definitely,
yeah.
I'm curious.
I need those like installments like together right now. I have to see what they're like. I can't wait for them.
I'm also really excited to see what that Antebellum movie is going to be like. I keep seeing trailers and it's like, I can't tell what the fuck is going on, but it looks cool. So.
All right.
Well,
I think the future looks positive.
Yeah.
All right. Well, gosh, thank you both, Molly and Jessica, for coming on to discuss the last decade. Was quite a journey. Where can our listeners find you, and do you guys have anything coming up soon that you want to plug?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. It's JJRose7, and JJ is spelled out Jay. I've got a really interesting Cold-Blooded Killers piece coming out on a couple of new slashers on the block. And they might not be who you think they are.
Hell yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so that'll be on Nightmare on Film Street, and I just I had a great interview with Jennifer Reeder on Modern Horrors, and she was...
I can't wait to read it.
Amazing. It was published over the weekend? Friday? Yeah, maybe? Yeah,
cool.
Check it out.
Yeah.
She was great. That was another one that, I mean, I just... Knives and Skin was... So amazing. Good. There's so many little ones that we missed here and there that I'm like, oh, I actually, like, I wrote about these, but can't put them all in. So, yeah, check that out. That'll be fun.
Man, I'd love to have her on this podcast. I would love to talk to her about her movie.
She just ignites, like, girl power.
Yes.
And that's... she had written back to me a couple of times, and just the emojis that she uses, I was like, yeah. Just made me feel so good. And like, I don't know, I might have to take like a screenshot so that when I like get up and go to work, or if I'm not feeling 100% girl powered, that's immediately what I felt, because I was like, she gets it.
That's awesome. And what about you, Molly?
People can find me on Instagram at blogging.banshee and on Twitter at bloggingbanshee. No dot for that one. I'm going on sorry, got all tongue-tied there. This month I'm going to be on thebloggingbanshee.com. I'm going to have... obviously, I'm going to have, like, my best of 2019 coming up, and I'm also working on an article that'll probably be out by the time this airs, in honor of a lot of men that got mad at me on Twitter. I am doing an article that's going to be a list of films that the premise of my list is going to piss off even more men, and I'm really excited about it.
Hell
so keep an eye out for that.
So excited. Instant retweet.
I'm so excited. Well, everyone, thanks so much for listening. This wraps up our end of the year, end of the decade content. So you'll be listening to this, I think, December 30th, and then we'll be back in the new year with more regularly scheduled Scarred for Life episodes. We hope you guys have an amazing new year. Happy 2020. And thanks so much for listening to us and for supporting us the past couple of months during our first couple of episodes. Your support means everything. And, you know, we'll have plenty more coming. So many exciting things are happening for us. So we just really appreciate everyone who listens and follows us and talks to us. We just appreciate you so much. And if you don't follow us at Scarred Podcast on Twitter. Send us an email if you want to talk about your favorite movies of the decade, scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at mbmcandrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
Once again, thank you everyone for listening to us. Thank you to Steve Barnold for our badass artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our badass music. Stay creepy, everyone.
And until next time. All right, I'm putting it in.
That's what she said.
It's graphic.
Oh no.
I'm just dreading the 3 dots.
It takes a little bit.
Oh my god.
I told you.
That has to be a prosthetic, yeah.
It is. It is a prosthetic.
No.
What?
Wow.
Oh my god.
This was on HBO.
Wow.
That's straight up porno.
It doesn't, and it doesn't show him ending. Like
No.
it actually.
Oh my god.
She's like very aggressive looking at that penis. I don't think I've ever like, looked that aggressively at a penis during a hand job before, but maybe I'm doing hand jobs wrong. But
If I did, the lights weren't on.
Oh my god.
I feel like I'm at the lab.
There you go.
okay, back on track.
This is where I was like, oh, I love Adam Scott.
So.
Okay.
It's
Oh
so
my God.
hypnotic.
So
Yeah.
I can't stop looking at it.
I know, me neither. I actually clicked it so I could see it because I can't see anymore. I can't see at all, and then it went full screen on the
Oh my god.
Somebody please think of the children!
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is the Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system. If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.